Chapter 143. The next day, Guang did not wake up early. When he opened his eyes, it was already past 10 in the morning. He was woken up by Nyangzi's shrill voice. These two grandsons were restless the moment they woke up. Nyangzi was lying next to Xiong, Er's head in the form of a golden-haired lion king, providing a gentle and caring roar to wake him up. However, Xiong had been drunk all night and was in a good state. Nyangzi's roar could do nothing to him. Guang opened his sleepy eyes and watched Nyangzi's various performances. He felt that this guy had ulterior motives. On the surface, he seemed to be tormenting Xiong, but he was secretly taking revenge on him for scaring him last night. If I didn't know you were narrow-minded, I would have been fooled by you. What are you howling for? Do you see my fist that's as big as a clay pot? Do you believe that I can turn you into a national treasure? Guang roared in annoyance. Nyangzi turned around and chuckled. Oh, Master Guang is awake? Do you need me to buy you breakfast? Guang thought for a moment and nodded. Sure, I'll go back to sleep. Bring me a bowl of porridge and 4 steam buns. Lin Jingwei finished washing up and walked in from the door. He asked, one more than usual? Guang spat in his heart. How could this guy be so observant? Could it be that the real gay guy in the dormitory was not Nyangzi, but this guy? I'm still growing. Eating more is useless. What do you guys know? I'm going to sleep for a while more. After saying that, Guang fell down again. It was rare that he did not have any classes in the morning. It was the perfect time to laze in bed in the hot summer. Of course, it didn't matter if he had classes or not. The afternoon class was a big class for hundreds of people. Guang also planned to skip it. Don't ask me why I'm so cool. The king of truancy has always been domineering. If I don't mention names, I'll just kneel at the teacher's door and beg for forgiveness. In the end, he didn't sleep well. It was rare for Queen Wenwen to call him personally, so he didn't dare to ignore it. Guang, where have you been these days? I don't see you playing any games, and you don't come to the library either. Are you trying to disappear with me? Queen Wenwen's voice sounded very unhappy. The consequences were very serious, which made Guang vaguely remember the scene when this woman put down all the hooligans in less than 10 seconds. Although I could be considered half an expert now, compared to this female Tyrannosaurus, Guang felt that he could probably live for 30 seconds. Not to mention, with second Uncle Wen's inner force, although Guang had never asked, he knew that Wenwen's skills were not as simple as they seemed on the surface. He quickly sat up straight and shook his head fiercely to clear his mind. Before he officially opened his mouth, Master Guang first organized his thoughts so that he wouldn't spill something that he shouldn't say. You don't know? Yesterday, our class received a group of foreign guests. They're very influential. They're professors and top students from MIT. Recently, our whole class has been working around the clock on this matter. Everyone is very tired, and I haven't been idle either. I helped to prepare the thesis. I have to say, the reception yesterday was not bad. The professor from MIT seemed to appreciate the thesis that our class wrote. Guang chuckled. On the other end of the phone, Wenwen spat. You even helped to prepare the thesis? Aren't you more of a hindrance? Guang wasn't convinced. Let me tell you, don't look down on me. I'm a main force. The main force serving tea and water. Fine, you saw through me. The thesis is mainly done by Sun Xiaoxuan and the others. Us boys are just assistants. However, this is for the glory of the country and the school, so we definitely have to help. It didn't affect my revision for CET4. After all, we were receiving foreign guests. I studied my English along with the thesis. The best way to lie in this world was to use half-truths. Guang understood the essence of this. Even if he was seen through in the future, he could still argue that Miss Wen had a problem with her comprehension. He didn't purposely hide it from her. Well, this way, he could avoid getting beaten up. It was better to be safe than sorry. All right, then. I was worried that I would disturb your studies. Since you've been reading recently, come out and relax with me today. It's a balance between work and rest. I'll give you 10 minutes. Hurry up and get dressed. I'll wait for you at the school gate. Let's go straight to the internet cafe. My hands are itchy. It turned out that when university's campus bell, calling to express her condolences, was fake. Her hands were really itchy. To be honest, Guang's hands were a little itchy too. He immediately put on his clothes quickly. When he was halfway through putting on his clothes, the hungover Xiong suddenly sat up straight on the bed like an alarm clock. Then, he turned his face like a zombie and looked at Chen Guang. He said in a muffled voice, "Good morning, Brother Guang. MHM, thanks for your hard work, Uncle Bear." After putting on his clothes, Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi came back with a big bag each. It must be said that Lin Jingwei really had the gift of being a good family man. He even thoughtfully bought breakfast for Xiong. It was just nice. However, when the third grandson heard that Chen Guang planned to run away with the buns and porridge, he became very curious about where he was going. Chen Guang had no choice but to stand them up again. He felt guilty, so he told them honestly that he was going to play a two-person game with Wenwen. The three of them did not agree. Even Xiong, who had just sobered up, became energetic and insisted on going. After all, Chen Guang's amazing Dota skills had deeply impressed the three frogs in the well. They really wanted to know how scary it would be after Chen Guang and Wenwen, the two experts, played a two-person game in the internet cafe. It would definitely be a storm in the high levels, and countless heroes would fight to bow down to them. Chen Guang could not dissuade them, so he could only pinch his nose and agree. Let me tell you guys, I won't bring you three noobs. After all, I and Wenwen are playing in the high levels with more than 5,000 points. Not long ago, Chen Guang was humiliated by these three players with 4,000 points. Now, he could use this arrogant tone to call them noobs. After enduring 3 months of hellish training, wasn't it for this moment? The three of them nodded their heads like chicks pecking at rice. Observing and learning is the main thing, and getting close to the school bell is the secondary thing, Lin Jingwei said with a smile. Hey, is it elegant? F***CK. Stop it. I was just joking. Don't panic, the call didn't go through. Chen Guang pushed Lin Jingwei away. All right, stop it. When university's school bell is going to flip out if we drag this out any longer. The four of them rushed to the school gate while munching on their buns. On the way, Chen Guang suddenly stopped in his tracks. He was glad that he was careful and almost messed things up. Right, there's one more thing. You guys must remember. The three of them saw him acting like he was facing a great enemy and thought he had a big secret. When I see Wenwen later, I can't let her know that my English has changed drastically and is no longer the same as before. Remember, it's very important. Why? Bai Nyangzi scratched his head in confusion. The other two were also confused. Xiaonger asked, "Don't you like to show off? This is a very good opportunity." Chen Guang kicked him. The secret of the heavens must not be revealed. In any case, all of you better remember this. Whoever dares to leak the secret will be my enemy for life. Chapter 144. Although they did not understand his intentions, the three of them felt that he must be plotting something when they saw how serious he was. They all swore to the heavens that they would not betray their brother's trust. Otherwise, they would die a horrible death. All right, since you guys are so sincere, I'll show you what it means to be the strongest duo of hacks in history. Miss Wen said 10 minutes, so they did not dare to waste a second. When they rushed to the school gate, they checked their watches and arrived at the 10-minute mark. Chen Guang quickly explained, "These three grandsons insisted on coming with us to broaden their horizons. They wanted to see how powerful we are when we're playing against each other. I couldn't even stop them, so we wasted some time." Xiong stuck his head out from the side with a face full of admiration. When university's campus bell is still as beautiful as ever. Our school's iron gate is practically blossoming with flowers. Bai Nyangzi jumped excitedly. That's right. Needless to say, while Wenwen was waiting for them at the school gate, many people had already bumped their heads into the lampposts one after another. Today, she was in high spirits. She wore a pair of tight waistcoats, a white shirt, and a black waistcoat. Coupled with her refreshing long hair and her tall, slender, and plump figure, she looked like a strong woman. Wenwen smiled at Chen Guang and waved her hand nonchalantly. "Stop dawdling, let's go." The ignorant and fearless Lin Jingwei, Bai Nyangzi, and Xiong did not know that Chen Guang had already pushed them to the gates of hell. If when university's campus bell really ran out of patience, it would be the fault of these three burdens. The five of them plunged into the internet cafe. When they entered, some of the ignorant and pitiful youngsters looked up. The five of them entered in unison, and there was an outrageously beautiful girl in the middle. They all looked at them curiously. It was another team of five. However, they actually had a girl with them, and she was so pretty. I curse you guys to make the girl beg for death. Chen Guang and Wenwen were already used to these people's expressions, so they didn't think much of it. This was the first time that Lin Jingwei and the other two were tagging along, so they weren't used to it. After all, Chen Guang was a tragedy in the past. Wenwen's training with him was called weight-bearing training. Of course, she wouldn't let these three grandsons come to the internet cafe to watch him being tortured to death in the high levels. Now that he was different from before, he dared to bring the three of them out. These short-sighted fools, they must think of us as the babysitter clan. Bai Nyangzi pinched his throat and said unhappily. Lin Jingwei, on the other hand, was calm. He smiled coolly and said, "These pitiful mortals don't understand that the true glory of babysitters is when Brother Guang is babysitter." Chen Guang sat in his booth and looked askance at these three pitiful fools. They didn't know how dangerous it was to tease when university's campus bell. They were dancing on the tip of a knife. Although the three grandsons had also turned on their computers, they didn't plan to sit down and fight. Instead, they surrounded Chen Guang and Wenwen, planning to get close to the people's gods. The most painful wait was the time before the computers were turned on in the internet cafe. Chen Guang and Wenwen were bored to death and felt uncomfortable, especially Chen Guang. He thought of the world in the sharpening cup last night and thought, this isn't right. Every time I learned a godly skill in the world in the cup, I would immediately use this godly skill to show off. Although the setting of being the best pencil sharpener in history was useless, it could be used to show off. If I don't show off, how can I live up to the miserable days and nights I spent with the sharpener? I can't let my hard work go to waste. Bai Nyangzi, I have a task for you. Go to the internet cafe counter and find me a pencil sharpener and a pencil sharpener. Although Bai Nyangzi didn't know what he was going to do, seeing that he was about to show off his godly skill in Dota, Bai Nyangzi went to run the errand. The internet cafe counter was out of stock. Fortunately, there was a snack shop downstairs. When Bai Nyangzi ran back, Chen Guang and Wenwen were already complaining about the game's matchmaking system. The matchmaking system was very friendly and considerate. From time to time, it would give a big surprise. The matchmaking time ranged from 1 minute to half an hour. Before the successful matchmaking interface popped up, you would never know when he would give you a surprise or a tragedy. Chen Guang thought that the game operator must be considerate of the majority of players. Long-term, high-intensity games were not good for the physical and mental health. They would force players to rest for 10 to 20 minutes from time to time to help the majority of players have appropriate time to rest during the intense game. They could empty their minds and think about life. Only the heavens knew when he would be matched, so he had to kill some time first. Taking the pencil and knife, Chen Guang mysteriously smiled and said, "Lads, let me show you guys a divine technique." Everyone saw his mysterious look and then looked at the thing in his hand. Even Goddess Wenwen had a puzzled expression on her face. Taking a deep breath, Chen Guang said loudly, "Hey, watch carefully." Immediately, his eyes emitted a dazzling cold light. His aura instantly rose and shot into the sky. Not bad. After all, he was a pencil-sharpening grandmaster. Even if he was not a grandmaster, he was still a grandmaster. A grandmaster of a generation had his own bearing. Chen Guang's eyes widened in anger. Holding the knife in his right hand, he slashed down fiercely. Receive the shock of my world-shocking skill. In a flash, the moment his pencil sharpener touched the tip of the pencil, countless sawdust flew like snow and scattered all over the ground. When the smoke and dust dissipated, only a perfectly round nib was left. It was fresh out of the oven and looked easy to write. It was very awesome and could definitely draw a perfect arc on the paper. This was a work of art that was as perfect as Venus. Chen Guang used less than 3 seconds to finish it. There was a calm and elegant smile on his face. It was hot and cool. Frogs at the bottom of a well? Are you scared by my scary style? I hope you can face the bleak and miserable life in the future correctly. How about it? I'm asking you, am I handsome? Am I cool? Do you want to learn? F***CK off. This was Wenwen's response. It's useless. Lin Jingwei commented. Brother Guang, you must have practiced this for 17 to 18 years, right? Amazing. But I don't want to learn. As expected of Xiong Air. Is it the police, uncle? Someone is acting cool here. It's so glaring. The situation is out of control. Bai Nyangzi actually made the call. After a while, when the interface of the successful match popped up, everyone's expression immediately changed, and they instantly became incomparably serious. A thick, murderous aura emanated from Chen Guang and Wenwen. It shot up into the sky and almost smashed a hole in the internet cafe's ceiling. This super strong duo of black players would finally reappear in the world. The Chinese Dota world was going to be turbulent again. No one noticed that in the heavenly holy grail that Chen Guang had placed in front of the computer monitor, Emperor of the Azure's fingers and eyes were glowing with a terrifying light. The Black Batman mug cover, coupled with the Hello Kitty mug cover inside, was a double layer of protection. It wouldn't leak and wouldn't be exposed. She could move it however she wanted. What? Someone said that he couldn't change the mug cover before? Stop joking. Master Guang was so smart. Why do you have to take off the Hello Kitty? He could use one mug for 2 mugs. He had no choice. That was how he could be so willful when he was rich. Chapter 145. About 40 minutes passed. He looked at the dazzling words, Heavenly Brilliance's Victory, on the screen. Chen Guang's hand that was holding the mouse froze. He had a blank look on his face. He did not understand what had happened at all. That was because he was on Yi Jie's side, the losing side. Wenwen's face was also blank. She had played this game for many years, but had never encountered such a strange game. From start to finish, she did not feel anything out of the ordinary. Wenwen, who was in charge of the mid lane, played the Blackbird. Her performance was stable. She suppressed in the early stages, fought in the middle, and carried in the late stages. She was like a stabilizing force. Chen Guang, who was in the center position, chose the Phantom Assassin, a hero with explosive power. In the early stages, with the cooperation of his teammates, he completely destroyed the opponent's disadvantageous path. In the middle stages, he relied on his godlike skills and awareness to kill the opponent, escape from death, or counterattack in a desperate situation. We have a huge advantage this round. We have a huge advantage this round. We have a huge advantage this round. We will definitely win this round. Watch him fight. But in the end, the strongest pair of Blackbirds in history lost this round. They actually lost. The people who lost were baffled and confused. The reason was that in the last round of the team battle, the opponent was sleepwalking from start to finish. The Dark Sage, who did not contribute as much as the soldiers of Heavenly Brilliance, suddenly stood up and blocked in front of Chen Guang's Phantom Assassin. As a high-damage output late game, Chen Guang decisively flashed forward and prepared to send him on his way. Then the problem was, I attacked 18 times in a row, and none of them were critical hits. What does this mean? This guy was so tough that he was unreasonable. He was as disgusting and annoying as a dogskin plaster. Even when all of his teammates were lying on the ground, Chen Guang still could not kill the Dark Sage, who was stronger than a cockroach. In the end, the opponent counterattacked and took away the base. Throwing away the mouse, Chen Guang turned to look at the people behind him and asked, "Did I play perfectly this round?" The 3 nodded. "Perfect. Don't you think my mechanics are cool? So cool that I can fly. Did I make any mistakes?" "No." "Then why do you think that's the case? Why did he lose?" Bai Nyangzi analyzed, Maybe it's because we didn't wash our faces before we left, so your face is too black." Chen Guang covered his face, feeling an indescribable pain in the ass. He had thought that he could easily close his eyes and kill everyone, but he didn't expect that he would have such a bad start and get hit in the knee by an arrow. "Director, this is a little different from the script I imagined. I want to stop acting." The other side must have used an anti-crit cheat. The opponent was a cheater. One on the other hand, twisted her neck, rubbed her fingers, and gritted her teeth. This lady doesn't believe this today. Again, are you okay? Of course, she still remembered Chen Guang's nausea and nausea. Chen Guang carefully thought about his current condition. Although he felt a little uncomfortable, he could still bear it. He nodded and said, "All right, one more." Half an hour later, when their base once again fell under the enemy's siege, Chen Guang exploded. Boom! Unable to care about anything else, Chen Guang threw down the mouse and rushed to the internet cafe's toilet. The other four were already used to his behavior, but they couldn't understand the huge victory of Nightmare on the computer monitor. In this game, Chen Guang and Wenwen were on the Sky Brilliant side. The development of the plot was almost the same as the previous game. They had all kinds of advantages in the early stages, and with Wenwen's nearly 8,000 points, Chen Guang's strength as the strongest player in history, and the 5,000 groups, it was impossible for them to meet an opponent that was too difficult to deal with. But in the end, there was still such a person who fiercely stood up and pulled the unstoppable Chen Guang to the ground, his mouth full of mud. Wenwen frowned as she looked at that slightly familiar ID. Then, she returned to the game interface and looked at the game record of the previous game. She discovered an exceptionally surprising fact. In 2 consecutive games, the person who had successfully suppressed Chen Guang's performance was actually the same person. It was an unknown player with the ID Jiangliua. Lin Jingwei and the other 2 also saw that something was amiss. Bai Nyangzi deftly searched for this person's battle record on his computer, and his face was even more bewildered. Strange, this person has no previous match record. It's a completely new ID that was directly matched with when University's Campus Bell and Brother Wong, and in 2 consecutive games. There's no reason for that. Could it be that the server is targeting you? Lin Jingwei also expressed his bewilderment. Even if it's really the almighty Smurf, there's no reason for this kind of newly registered ID to be matched with your high-level group. There's something fishy going on. Woman waved her hand indifferently. Forget it. Whether it's the server targeting us or Jiangliua targeting me and Chen Guang, it doesn't matter. In any case, playing games is to relax. Although winning or losing is important, losing isn't a big deal. It's not like we haven't lost before. Chen Guang had thrown up in the toilet, and by the time he had run over, he had already put on a pair of sunglasses. After 2 consecutive games, the after effects had flared up again. Walking over to the computer, he pulled Wenwen to run away. "We can't play anymore. We can't play anymore. Let's call a truce for today and fight another day." Wenwen wasn't in a hurry to get up. Instead, she forced him to stare at the monitor and asked, "Have you seen this ID before, Jiangliua? He's the one who defeated you in these 2 games." Chen Guang clenched his teeth and stared at the ID, then went to Bai Nyangzi's computer to look at this person's battle record. He shook his head repeatedly. "I've never seen him before. I don't know where he came from." Although he looked calm on the surface, in fact, no one could understand the stormy waves in his heart. He wasn't blowing his own trumpet. After going through hellish training, he claimed to be the world's number 2, but no one really claimed to be the world's number 1. So here was the problem. This time, he had indeed completely and utterly lost to the same person. Twice. This was simply a human tragedy. Although the other side had only fought him head-on in the later stages of the game and had always looked like he was at a disadvantage, that person had, in the end, used the position of a soy sauce to restrain him, the main carry. Clearly, he had the advantage, beating the other side until he covered his head and scurried away like a rat, but he just couldn't send him back to the spring. Instead, he had been disrupted so much that he couldn't attack, which ultimately led to his team's defeat and the loss of the game. What exactly went wrong? Why do I feel that this person called Jiangliua has completely seen through my every move? My operation can be said to be at the peak of perfection, but that Jiangliua is equally meticulous and even better than me. Chen Guang simply couldn't understand. This opponent was ridiculously strong, simply exceeding the limits of human beings. If it was just one failure, it could still be attributed to chance, but 2 failures in a row was enough to explain the problem. The others hadn't reached Chen Guang's realm, so they couldn't see clearly what was strange about it. They just thought that this was an ordinary losing streak. After all, no matter how strong a professional player was, it was impossible to dominate a random game forever, and losing streaks were even more common. But Qinguang clearly knew that things weren't so simple. There was something fishy going on here. Chapter 146. Forcing himself to endure the discomfort, Qinguang opened his game account and sent a friend request to Jing Liuhua. Regardless of whether the other party accepted it or not, he immediately got offline and ran away. Taking a second look at the game interface, he vomited stomach acid all over the ground. Qinguang and Wenwen were leaving, and by Nyangzi and the other two were no longer in the mood to stay. Today's feng shui was unfavorable, so it was better to stay at home instead of playing games. Qinguang's mind was full of Jing Liuhua's matter, which had dealt him a huge blow. He had always believed that the ability that he had trained in the world within a cup would be flawless and invulnerable. He would definitely be the strongest in history. But in the end, while playing Dota today, he had been cured. It seemed like a trivial matter, but had made him start to doubt his entire life. Could it be that in addition to me, the controller of the cheat, there is another non-human being in this world who receives the same treatment as me? F***CK. I refuse to accept this. Even if there really is such a person, how senseless must you be to come to the game to beat me up? You want a game against me, and I won't lose a single cent. At that moment, Qinguang had no idea that in the realm and cup of the heavenly Holy Grail, a very inelegantly dressed goddess empress was going crazy with joy. Oh my, this small low-end plane can actually give this empress such a big surprise? This is really unexpected. These mortals are so weak that even this empress doesn't want to ridicule them. But their imagination is really amazing. Is this the wisdom of ants? Emperor of the Azure was rocking back and forth with laughter, but no one paid attention to her. After all, before Qinguang had entered this huge realm and cup, she had been the only one there. If Qinguang had seen this scene, he would definitely have regarded her as a lunatic. To borrow a saying that people on Earth often say, city people really know how to play. The longer he stayed by Qinguang's side, the more he successfully connected to the internet last night. Finally, he did not have to waste time and energy and waste a large amount of divine power to probe and sense the outside world. Liuli understood the methods of the modern world. From the high and mighty god power perception, it became a more low-key, luxurious, meaningful, practical, and efficient way of consuming data. Surfing the internet, this unprecedented retreat allowed her to be like a fish in water. It was like a dragon returning to the sea, a bird flying freely in the sky. From last night until now, Emperor of the Azure had lost count of how many jokes she had read on the internet and how many popular new languages she had learned. Things like exploding manga, unexpectedly, reporting to boss, 100,000 cold jokes, hip-hop quartet, the complete collection of Stephen King's movies. Well, she hadn't had time to watch these yet, but she had written them down and planned to read them later. But this still wasn't what made her happiest. Today, when she saw Qinguang and Wenwen playing games, she couldn't help sneaking into the internet and giving it a try. She created an ID called Jiang Luhua, which had the word Lu in it, and put herself in front of Qinguang to have fun twice in a row. She was astonished. She simply admired the Earthling's entertainment spirit from the bottom of her heart. In her long career as a divine emperor, she had seen all kinds of storms and tried all kinds of strange ways of playing. But in the endless realm of the gods, billions of gods pursued greater power. Their overly powerful selves often put the cart before the horse when developing entertainment methods. The so-called leisure, to put it bluntly, was still cultivation. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't focus on the right things. It wasn't like Earth, where there was a group of people who exhausted their wisdom and worked together just to make a relaxing, enjoyable, and addictive game. The two were simply not on the same level. The moment Liuli started playing, she was completely addicted to the game. At the same time, she even tortured old Master Qinguang. Why was it so fun? If I wasn't a dignified divine emperor, I would have knelt down in front of the person who made this game. Please accept my 10 billion-year-old good kneeling. It's a pity that Guang's cell phone network is too unstable, so it's really inconvenient to connect to the game. Forget it. I'll play it when he's asleep at night. Anyway, I have nothing to do, and watching a video on the 4G network isn't a problem, so I'll watch it first. Unexpectedly, right? Master Guang's cell phone data was on the latest high-speed train heading north, gradually getting farther and farther away. Sadly, Liuli was annoyed and even blocked the text messages from 10086, who always sent her text messages to disturb her watching movies. If Guang knew that he wasn't abused by another non-human with a cheat, but by his own cheat, he would probably vomit a few more liters of blood. He would probably vomit a few more liters of blood when he had to pay the phone bill next month. After all, when he first entered university, he was still a middle-aged, rich second-generation heir. In order to show his status, he had specially applied for a postpaid phone card, so it wouldn't be suspended because of arrears. This time, he was probably going to suffer a heavy loss. On the other hand, as soon as Guang and the other four walked out of the internet cafe with a heavy heart, they ran into a punching bag. Strictly speaking, the dozen or so young men with stud earrings and weird hairstyles standing in front of the five of them were Wenwen's punching bags. Perhaps she was a little unhappy because she had been beaten twice in a row today, so she was in a rare state of absent-mindedness. When she walked out of the internet cafe, she accidentally stepped on the foot of the young man who was about to enter the door. This group of hot-tempered young men who were active in the vicinity of Wenqing Town were instantly ignited. When they saw Wenwen's overly beautiful appearance, they didn't care even if there were 4 boys by her side. After all, they had a lot of family. The one who had his foot stepped on had the gall to extend his hand towards Wenwen's face, planning to touch her face first. He said, "Little girl, you stepped on your brother's foot and you want to leave without saying anything?" Seeing this, Guang reacted the fastest. He quickly retreated and turned his face away at the same time. This scene was so familiar. The only difference was that last time it was at night, and this time it was in broad daylight. As for the 3 grandsons of Lin Jingwei, they didn't need to care about those details. They were just props in the background. Xiong who didn't know the severity of the situation, was the first to explode. He roared, "Damn it, get lost. I'll slap you." Needless to say, Xiong-er's movement, coupled with his ferocious tiger-like aura, was quite intimidating. However, Wenwen did make a sound. She raised her hand at lightning speed and blocked the ignorant young man's palm. Then, she tightened her fingernails and flicked her finger. The young man covered his hand and wailed as he shrank to the side. About 30 seconds later, Guang finally turned his face around. It was truly a tragic sight. "Sigh, you people are really too much. Why did you have to come and be the punching bag when university's campus belle is in a bad mood? Your courage and generosity will be engraved in the annals of history." Warriors, Lin, Bai, and Xiong stood in front of the internet cafe in a daze. Their faces were full of shock. Guang patted their shoulders heavily and sighed. "Brothers, you all know what kind of life I've been living for the past 3 years, right?" Chapter 147. The 3 of them nodded their heads like chicks pecking at rice. "I understand. I finally understand." Recalling how they dared to tease when university's campus belle, the 3 grandsons broke out in a cold sweat. Oh my God, there were more than 10 people. In 30 seconds, her movements were so fast that they couldn't be seen clearly. They could only see them flying out one after another and landing on the ground. No one knew where they were injured, but no one could get up. "To be honest, Xiong, luckily I held you back just now. If you tried to help and got hurt by accident, didn't I have internal bleeding at the start of my first year? I never told you what happened, but it's not too late to tell you now. I was just hit by her and accidentally punched. It was just one punch." The more Guang spoke, the more terrifying it became. The 3 of them looked at Wenwen with a strange expression. It was like a rabbit looking at a female tyrannosaurus. When they looked at Guang again, it was as if they were looking at a martyr walking on the road to hell. Lin Bai and Xiong could not help but recall what Guang said last night. No wonder he said that after they saw Wenwen's methods, They would never dare to make fun of Wenwen again in this life. Not to mention this life. Even if there was a next life, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Wenwen walked back while clapping her hands. She smiled at the three of them. Why are you looking at me like that? Didn't Xinguang tell you about me? Xinguang rolled his eyes. Am I not trying to protect your Leda-like image of when university's campus bell? The three of them shook their heads violently. Lin Jingwei, who was standing by the door, almost hit his nose on the door frame. Glancing at the three of them in disdain, Wenwen continued, That's why Xinguang isn't the same as you guys. Back then, when he first met me, I was here beating up a bunch of people, but he wasn't afraid of me. She brought up again. Xinguang felt his stomach ache. He thought to himself, Missy, I was stunned by your punch and almost lost consciousness. I wanted to be afraid, but I didn't have the energy to be. This was probably fate. Hence, after Xinguang and Wenwen became best friends, Lin Baixiong and the other two never had the same treatment. The three of them were instantly filled with admiration for Xinguang. Brother Guang was indeed Brother Guang. There was only one Brother Guang in this world. Bai Niangzi rolled his eyes. How can we compare to Brother Guang? All right, let's go. Wenwen wiped the blood on the back of her hand on Xinguang's shirt. Then, she waved her hand and left. The five of them ran away in a flash, leaving behind a bunch of wailing punks. A true warrior never looked back to see an explosion. After returning to school, Lin Baixiong and the other two found an excuse to run away. Xinguang was dragged to the library by Wenwen. There was a balance between work and rest. After playing games, he had to pick up his studies later. The two of them sat in the library. Xinguang stared at the papers in front of him, but he couldn't help but recall the 2 consecutive rounds. Under normal circumstances, although Wenwen was tough, she wasn't so hot-tempered. That young man had only reached out to take advantage of her, but he hadn't. At most, she had taught the leader of the punks a lesson and subdued the others. Today, she had been so ruthless, which was clearly abnormal. She was indeed venting something. Xinguang speculated that it was very likely that his godly performance had made her look forward to the next round. She had planned to win 2 rounds quickly, but in the end, she had lost. She had been unhappy, and those people had been out of luck. Therefore, she had taken all the human sandbags that had been delivered to her doorstep. Alas, in order to save the world, in order to prevent as many innocent people as possible from being harmed, I can't lose. Xinguang gritted his teeth and steeled his heart. He definitely couldn't let Zhang Liuwa get away with it and ride on his head. Good. Since you've chosen to have a showdown with me in Dota, as the master of this generation's golden finger, as the savior of Emperor of the Azure, I accept your challenge. I'll kill Zhang Liuwa. If I have time, I'll practice well. But the prerequisite is that if I have time, after all, I'm also carrying a family on my shoulders. Time is very precious. At this time, Wenwen also propped her chin up with her hand. She wasn't staring at Xinguang, but was looking outside through the library's glass wall with a dull expression. Her mind was wandering, and no one knew what she was thinking. Xinguang still didn't have any clues about his family's affairs. The clues had been completely cut off, and he didn't know what had gone wrong. Wenwen couldn't understand why. With Second Uncle's ability, he hadn't been able to investigate further. She really didn't believe that there was any power in this world that could even deceive Second Uncle's eyes and ears. Recently, some people in the family seemed to have started to get restless, and there seemed to be some undercurrents surging inside and outside the family. Being able to smoothly finish this university seemed to be the last of her contented days. Thinking about these things gave her a headache. She really couldn't accept it. Fortunately, she had beaten up a lot of people today, so she was in a much better mood. When the car comes to the mountain, there will be a road, and when the boat comes to the bridgehead, there will naturally be a way. If Xinguang knew that a tomboy like me would also have troubles, he would definitely laugh his teeth off, wouldn't he? As she thought about it, Wenwen turned her head again and faced Xinguang, who was staring blankly at her. For a moment, she smiled. 10 miles of spring breeze didn't care, but a smile could charm 100 people. Caught off guard by her smile, Xinguang blushed and turned his head away. His heart was pounding, and there was only one thought in his mind. It was terrifying. How could I let my imagination run wild because of this tomboy smile? And this was after witnessing her valiance just now? Is there something wrong with my sexual orientation? What are you doing? Why are you scaring me? Chun Guang fiercely hammered his chest twice. Even the boys and girls at the desk next to him gave him a strange look, but he managed to calm his heartbeat. Wenwen spat in her heart. Your words don't sound pleasant. I smiled at you, and you actually said I was scaring you. Her cunning mind suddenly jumped out again. You said I was scaring you, right? Then I'll give you some big news. Right, I see that you've been studying very hard recently, and your accuracy rate is almost 50%. Otherwise what? Chun Guang suddenly felt alarmed. This man was going to make a big move. Otherwise, I'll give you a little reward in advance. Then I'll stimulate your motivation. Sure enough, to be honest, since he recognized Liu Li as his master, the old man hadn't drawn a map for a few days. You're making me lose my essence. No, now is the crucial moment for the old man to practice the 10 lands, 8 wastelands celestial demon transformation. I can't allow the vital yang essence to be wasted for nothing. I must stabilize my heart. Is what you said true? My mouth. I can't control it anymore. Wenwen immediately laughed like a flower. She couldn't care less about the other boys who were already peeking in this direction. She clutched her stomach with one hand and stuck out a slender finger with the other, heavily poking Chun Guang's forehead. He almost flipped over. Dream on. Was it true? With your current appearance, you still have to kneel. The two of them were teasing each other here, but they didn't notice that a pair of eyes filled with hatred and jealousy was staring at Chun Guang from the gap of the stairs on the upper floor of the library. Zheng, his knuckles turned white. He was so jealous that he almost went crazy. On what basis? What virtue and ability do you, Chun Guang, on what basis? Chapter 148. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was the weekend again. Well, it had only been a day. Waking up early in the morning, Chun Guang drove the Rena that he had escaped death to the city. When a master of the auto repair shop handed the repaired car to him, he said to him with tears in his eyes, Little Chun, don't ruin the car like this. I feel pain for it just by looking at it. Chun Guang's face was red. He gritted his teeth and explained to the master, It's not what you think. The people sent by Zhu Jifa left their hometown at about 6 o'clock in the morning. It was estimated that they would be sent to the long-distance bus station at 6 Apricot Tower by 9 o'clock. Chun Guang was going to pick up his parents and then go to Wujing City Hospital. After all, the people sent by Zhu Jifa to the provincial capital had other things to do. It was already very troublesome for them to hitch a ride to 6 Apricot Tower. When he saw his parents, they were surrounded by a lot of old men and women who were recommending some healthcare products to them. Before Chun Guang could walk to his seat and speak, he saw his father, Chun Guoli, suddenly take out a large bottle of Puss Corporation's special medicine from his backpack and shouted, Pure American imported medicine. Specializes in treating rheumatoid arthritis, lumbar disc herniation, frequent urination, sore legs. Come, take a look. You won't be able to find such a shop. See, English. Enrich. Do you know him? Pure imported. If it's fake, I'll pay you 10 times the price. The group of old masters and aunties at the side rolled their eyes and turned around to leave. Damn it. A fellow traveler from another city had rushed into the temple of the Dragon King. Chun Guang immediately took a step back and planned to greet his parents after a while. But there was nothing he could do about it. Although he managed to scare away his peer, the gazes of the passers-by were too lethal. He covered his face. My family is unfortunate. My teasing is definitely inherited from my father. Son, here. Damn, Dad, you're so old, but your eyes are still so good. I've already covered my face, yet you can still pick me out from the crowd. Is it because my hairstyle is too cool and eye-catching? When the two elders got into the car, Chun Guang vaguely heard others say that this family of swindlers had made a fortune and could even afford a car. The moral degeneration of the world was getting worse. On the road, Chun Guoli wanted to interrogate Chun Guang several times about how he earned the 180,000 yuan, but when he looked at his wife, Feng Rong, who was breathing heavily, he didn't open his mouth in the end. He was afraid of scaring Feng Rong. So he had given Feng Rong an excuse, saying that he had contacted an old comrade in arms, who knew that his family was in trouble, and had lent him 180,000 yuan. At that time, Feng Rong was extremely touched. She knew that her family was in such a difficult situation and was like a bottomless pit, but he was still willing to lend her 180,000 yuan. No matter what, she wanted to personally express her gratitude. Later, Chung Guoli had no choice but to lie again and again, saying that he was now a big boss and had gone overseas on a business trip. He wouldn't be back for 2 to 3 months, and he couldn't get through to the domestic phone either. Only then did he reluctantly give up. Chen Guang stared at the red light at the intersection carefully and finally asked. It wasn't that he had forgotten, but from the moment he picked up the two of them, he could tell that his mother's condition wasn't right. He didn't dare to ask, but now he couldn't hold it in anymore. Dad, Mom hasn't stopped her dialysis recently, right? Chen Guang asked. Before Chen Guoli could speak, Feng Rong spoke first. She waved her hand casually. Of course not. Your dad works so hard to earn money. Some time ago, he had a comrade in arms who was a boss who lent us 180,000 yuan. Our family isn't short of money now, but we have to thank him later. All right, old Chun, does your comrade in arms have a daughter? Is she close to Xiao Guang's age? All right. Haven't you earned enough? Isn't it enough to earn 180,000 yuan from him? You want to earn his daughter too? Chen Guoli had to continue making up lies. It was tiring. Feng Rong glared at him. What are you saying? Our Xiao Guang is a top student from a top university. His future is limitless. Our family might be a little poor now, but Xiao Guang is very capable. It's not a loss to have an in-law, right? Isn't this very popular among comrade in arms? Mom, forget it. What era are we in now? That's not popular anymore. We youngsters all want to be free to love. Who would still do this? Of course, Chen Guang knew that there was no such thing as a boss comrade in arms. A comrade in arms who could help the village had already raised 100 to 200,000 yuan for his dad. Wasn't the boss comrade in arms that his mom was talking about him? It was really hard on his dad. He had to keep up such a big lie until now. If it was someone with a slower brain, he would have been exposed long ago. However, seeing that his mom could still ramble on. Although her complexion didn't look good, her body seemed to be in good condition. After all, the Puss Corporation's special medicine had never been stopped. Chen Guang's mood suddenly relaxed. Since Chen Guang had said so, Feng Rong didn't pester him about the comrade in arms anymore. She turned her head from the back seat and looked up and down at Chen Guang with a pained expression. It must have been hard on Xiao Guang these days. You have to go to school and drive at the same time. You must be tired, right? Sigh, Mom's illness can't be cured. Looking at you skinny makes me feel terrible. If it wasn't for the fact that you haven't graduated from university and haven't married, yet to give birth to a grandchild for me, I would have given up long ago. Chen Guang's mood was a little complicated. My current body can also be called skinny. When I take off my outer clothes and stand on the side of the road, I look like a top male model. When the students from Dachuan Academy of Fine Arts pass by, they have to take out their drawing boards to draw me a portrait of David. However, when he heard the second half of his mom's words, his heart felt terrible. The energy of this roasting and the feeling of discomfort mixed together. The feeling was too complicated. Chen Guang helped Chen Guoli out of the predicament. On the other side, Chen Guoli saw that Chen Guang's expression was a little gloomy after listening to his mom's words. He pulled his wife's shoulder. What nonsense are you talking about? If you're sick, you have to treat it. We have 2 grown men in our family. Can't we handle it? Xiao Guang is concentrating on driving. Don't talk nonsense with him and disturb his driving. If he gets a traffic ticket, he will have to deduct points and pay a fine. Sure enough, Feng Rong was frightened. She didn't say any more nonsense, but there was a dull pain in her stomach, but she endured it and slowly sat back down. 2 drops of cold sweat appeared on the tip of her nose, but she didn't make a sound. Chen Guoli held her hand from the side and gave her an encouraging look. He knew that she did not want to make Chen Guang uncomfortable. There was a little traffic jam today. When the group of them arrived at the hospital, it was almost noon. It was the time when the doctors got off work. Chen Guang let his parents have lunch at the small shop at the entrance of the hospital while he rushed in with an empty stomach. His dad would bring his lunch over later. Although his mother's attending physician, Dr. Ma, was not very famous and was not a famous expert, because he was serious and responsible, there had always been a lot of patients. Even if the old patients came, unless it was an emergency, they would usually have to wait in line. Just as they stood in the queue, Chun Guang saw someone unexpected. It was his cheap sister, Wu Tong. This woman walked out of the doctor's office with a troubled look. Chapter 149. After taking 2 steps, Wu Tong raised her head and saw Chun Guang standing in the crowd, staring at her. She opened her mouth wide and stared blankly for a moment before regaining her composure. Her expression became even more complicated. After thinking for a while, she still walked towards Chun Guang. Chun Guang was puzzled. What's wrong with this woman today? She's different from my impression of a tough and domineering police officer. Wu Tong walked in front of Chun Guang and asked, "What are you doing here?" Chun Guang gestured to the long queue in front of him. "I'm accompanying my mom to the hospital to see a doctor. I'm waiting to hand in the registration form. What about you?" Wu Tong blushed, but she quickly calmed down and waved her hand casually. "I'm here to chat with a friend. What's wrong with your mom?" Chun Guang was still in a daze. "Mom, your mom. Really?" Wu Tong blushed even more. Chun Guang's expression darkened. He hesitated for a moment and said, "It's nothing serious. She's old and has some minor problems. But my dad made a fuss and insisted that she come to Wujing City Hospital." Wu Tong believed his words and said, "You brat. Old people can't be taken lightly even if they don't have minor illnesses. What do you mean your dad made a fuss? All right, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. I still have to patrol." Waving goodbye to Chun Guang, Wu Tong strode away with her long legs, dragging away the gazes of many people nearby. When she turned around a corner, she suddenly leaned her back against the wall. Her little heart was thumping wildly. She thought in her heart, "I must have seen a ghost. Why is this brat's vengeful spirit still lingering? Wherever I go, I run into him. I'll be damned if I believe you." Thinking of what Tang Ying had said to her a few minutes ago, Wu Tong's heart couldn't calm down. What's wrong with you?" "Well, if you insist that you're sick, then it's lovesickness." "What nonsense are you talking about? I don't want that kind of person, although I don't know who has charmed a little demon like you. However, you, Wu Tong, are already a girl in your 20s. If it was in ancient times, a girl of your age would have already arranged a marriage for her son. Just follow your heart. This day will come sooner or later anyway." "Conscience my ass. I'm telling you, this isn't normal." There was no reason for her to suddenly fall in love with someone she didn't even know before. This is simply unimaginable. There's nothing strange about it. We've watched so many romantic movies together. Don't you believe that love at first sight exists in this world? What love at first sight? Even if there was a clock, it wouldn't be like that. Besides, you're not young anymore. Why haven't you been seduced by some wild man? Puffed. I'm not like a slacker like you. I'm a top student of my generation, the youngest PhD student in the history of Moorlands Medical College. I have long since made up my mind to devote my glorious and great life to the boundless cause of medicine. Get lost. Don't disturb me here. There are still 180 patients waiting for me. This bestie of hers is not reliable at all. She's the youngest PhD student in the history of Moorlands Medical College. You're not even as good as that dogskin plaster I caught on the street a few days ago. I anxiously ran over to you, hoping that you, a great doctor who had returned from abroad, could diagnose me and see if there was something wrong with me mentally or physically, but you only teased me. How infuriating. She didn't expect to bump into the ignorant Chun Guang the moment she walked out of Tang Ying's office in a huff. She almost jumped in fright. Fortunately, as a police officer, Wu Tong had good mental fortitude. She calmed herself down immediately, although she also felt that Chun Guang's reply was a little unusual. She was even more flustered. She didn't have the guts to turn around and ask. She took a few deep breaths and hurried downstairs. Chun Guang was also full of doubts. However, he was worried about his mother's condition, so he didn't think too much about Wu Tong. After his parents came upstairs, Chun Guang ate lunch and waited with them. About 2 hours later, they were finally called. "Miss Feng, please take a seat." Dr. Ma was indeed a responsible person. He didn't even look at the consultation card before calling out Feng Rong's surname. That wasn't all. He turned around and greeted Chun Guoli. Mr. Chun, you should have come for a checkup last week. Why did you only come this week? Chun Guoli scratched his head embarrassedly. I was delayed by some trivial matters last week. I'm really sorry. Dr. Ma put on a straight face. What's there to be embarrassed about? The patient is your family member. You should be embarrassed about yourself. Remember, you can't delay this in the future. The patient's health is more important. Chun Guoli nodded repeatedly. Dr. Ma consulted Chun Guoli about Feng Rong's condition for a long time. In the end, he wrote a bunch of forms and asked Chun Guoli to take them to prepare to arrange for Feng Rong to be admitted to the hospital first. At the same time, he wanted to do all kinds of checkups. Her dialysis this time would be done at the city hospital together. It would probably take a few days before she could be discharged. The few of them were busy in the hospital for a while. They had to move the beds in the ward and rush to do a lot of checkups. It was only after dinner that they finally settled down in the ward. Chun Guang chatted with his parents in the hospital the whole time. He planned to go back to school after 9 o'clock and come over early the next morning. When it was about 8:30 p.m., Dr. Ma came. Everyone couldn't help but feel that it was a little strange. Since Dr. Ma was the one who was seeing patients during the day, he should have gone home to rest at this time. It should be another doctor on duty who came. Dr. Ma chatted with everyone along the way and asked questions along the way. After waiting for about 20 minutes, he stood in front of Chun Guang's family. Originally, Chun Guang planned to leave, but since Dr. Ma came, he stayed. He wanted to listen to what he and his mother asked. It was still the usual questions. Then, Dr. Ma suddenly changed the topic and said something else. Actually, it's like this. I will be going to Moreland's Medical College in the United States to further my studies in 2 days. So, all the patients under my name will be transferred to another doctor who returned from Moreland's Medical College, Dr. Tang. Previously, the other patients have already been notified one by one. They have also met Dr. Tang. Madam Feng just came today. I thought that I would have to leave tomorrow, so I specially came to inform Mr. Chan and the rest. What? Chun Guang's family was a little surprised. They also felt a little uneasy. Dr. Ma was so serious and responsible. Who knew if the person who took over his shift would be the same as him? Of course, everyone had known each other for almost a year. Seeing that he was going to leave, they were also reluctant. Chapter 150. Seeing everyone like this, Dr. Ma smiled. All of you don't worry. Moreland's Medical College is a sacred place in my eyes. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to further my studies there. Dr. Tang is the youngest doctor in Moreland's Medical College in the past 10 years. Before she returned to China, she already had a lot of clinical experience. She even diagnosed a lot of famous people on the other side of the Atlantic. One of them is probably a senior executive at Google. They specially spent $1 million to treat her. Of course, she successfully completed her mission and brought the patient back from the brink of death. When Chun Guang's family heard how Dr. Ma described Dr. Tang, they couldn't help but feel happy. However, they felt a little embarrassed as it was in front of Dr. Ma. Chun Guoli was still mature. He immediately waved his hand. What do you mean by spending $1 million to treat a patient? This is written in those chicken soup for the soul stories. However, since it's the hospital's decision, we believe in the hospital and Dr. Ma's choice. Dr. Ma became serious. Mr. Chun, don't doubt me. I know my own standard very well. Although I'm a few years older, I might not even be comparable to a normal doctor in Moreland's Medical College, let alone a genius like Dr. Tang. What I told you is all true. Dr. Tang is also very responsible. Before the official handover, she had already read all the patient's medical records. She came prepared. Although the 3 Chan family members were still reluctant to leave Dr. Ma, they were secretly looking forward to it. They really wanted to see what kind of person Dr. Tang was. At this moment, a large group of people came in. Dr. Ma raised his head and smiled. He pointed at the door and said, "Speak of the devil. Dr. Tang is here. She's the prettiest female doctor. I'll bring her to talk to you. Actually, she already knows a lot about your condition." Chun Guang followed Dr. Ma's finger and looked at the door. He was instantly stunned. The person in the white coat was walking in front. Although the clothes she was wearing were different from that day, her face was clearly that of the drunk woman. Ever since Chun Guang had hung up on her and blacklisted her, she had tried different numbers to call him. Whenever she heard her voice, she would pinch the number and ignore her. But he never expected to meet her again in this hospital, and she was about to become his mother's attending physician. He subconsciously thought of this woman's appearance when she was drunk into a pool of mud, and then looked at her excessively young face. Chun Guang's heart suddenly turned cold. His parents were still looking at the young female doctor expectantly. His father sighed. He's really a young genius. Dr. Tang is so young. Feng Rong, who was lying on the bed, also straightened her neck. She looks like she's in her 20s. Dr. Ma nodded and smiled at Tang Ying. Then, he turned around and sighed. That's right. It's more difficult to get a doctorate from Moreland's Medical College than to become a professor in our National Medical University. But she's only 26 years old. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Chun Guang felt that Dr. Ma was praising the drunk woman too much. He thought about it again. Wasn't Dr. Ma going to Moreland's Medical College? The drunk woman must have found a way for Dr. Ma to get into that so-called Moreland's Medical College. That was why he was sparing no effort to help this woman get promoted in the hospital. At the thought of this, Chun Guang's already bad impression of Tang Ying dropped by 30%. I've seen you at your worst. How can I believe that you're a so-called genius doctor? You're only 26 years old. How can I trust you with my mother's life? Not only did Chun Guang see Tang Ying, but she also saw Chun Guang. She was even more dumbfounded. She did not even notice Dr. Ma nodding at her. She was stunned at the door of the ward, and an inexplicable sense of fear welled up in her heart. She just watched helplessly as Chun Guang looked at her. His gaze changed from surprise to doubt, and then disgust. That's right. That gaze was clearly disgust. Of course, Tang Ying knew why the boy was like this. She was also embarrassed because of what happened that day. Every time she thought about it, she felt ashamed. Dr. Tang, what's wrong with you? A large group of interns and nurses followed behind her, but she blocked the door and could not enter. A young nurse could not help but ask quietly. Tang Ying suddenly came back to her senses. She no longer looked at Chun Guang. Instead, she sorted out her emotions and walked to the bed closest to the door. Today, she was not a drunken woman. She was an attending physician. She was here to work and make ward rounds. Everything else should be put aside for now. However, since she met him here, and he seemed to be a patient's family member, he could not continue to hide from her this time. At the same time, she could also settle her worries. At this time, Dr. Ma came over and greeted Tang Ying. He said, Dr. Tang, come over here first. Ms. Feng Rong is a patient who just came here today. I'll introduce you to her, and then I'll go home. Tang Ying did not react. When she entered the door just now, she did not see Dr. Ma at all. However, she still hurriedly greeted Dr. Ma. Then, she looked in the direction that Dr. Ma was pointing. It was the bed next to Chun Guang. According to Dr. Ma, the lady next to the bed was Feng Rong. Tang Ying had already memorized Feng Rong's medical records. Of course, she knew her condition. It was a very typical chronic kidney failure. Looking at them, they seemed to be a family of 3. He was Feng Rong's son. No wonder he drove a sports car all day to earn money, even though he was a college student. It turned out that there was such a reason. I thought that he was a college student who wanted something new and ran around to have fun. I didn't think that he was just being filial. Then, she remembered that he had wasted a few hours of earning money in order to wait for her to sober up. No wonder he was so angry after being misunderstood. Thinking of this, Tang Ying felt even more ashamed. She must find a chance to explain to him. As for Feng Rong's illness, she had to do her best regardless of whether it was true or not. With this thought in mind, Tang Ying finally calmed herself down. She walked over with a smile, greeted him, and began to ask questions. During the whole process of Tang Ying's questioning, Chun Guang did not say a word. He hid the disgust and distrust in his heart deeply and only looked at the woman coldly. The examination results would only come out tomorrow. No matter how good Tang Ying was today, she could not get any substantial information from him. It was just a very simple and casual conversation between the new doctor and the patient. Dr. Ma hurriedly left halfway through the conversation. Before he left, he only said goodbye and said happily, "I'll leave the rest to you." Chapter 151. He watched as Tang Ying led a large group of people around the ward, talking to one patient after another, and then instructing the assistants or interns behind her to hand her the examination reports one after another. She then looked at the reports while chatting with the patients. Chen Guang did not say a word from the beginning to the end. A thought was running through his mind. No, I must replace her. I can't put my mother's life in the hands of an alcoholic woman. She's still so young. God knows if she exchanged her education with her beauty. God knows if the CEO of Google really wanted to hire her for $1 million US. Maybe she was hired because of her beauty. I don't trust her from the bottom of my heart. Originally, Chen Guang planned to leave at 9 o'clock. In the end, even though his father had repeatedly urged him to leave, he still made him sit in the ward until 10 o'clock. Only then did Tang Ying finish talking to each patient one by one. In fact, Chen Guang's guess was right. Dr. Ma's admission to Moreland's Medical College was indeed due to Tang Ying's efforts. Back then, she got herself drunk because she had just returned from abroad and was planning to make a name for herself in the country. However, she was ostracized by a group of senior doctors in Wujing City Hospital. She stayed in the hospital for a whole 2 months, but she was not assigned to see patients even once, nor was she assigned to the inpatient department. Instead, she was ordered around by a group of senior doctors all day long, just like those interns who had just graduated in the country. Yes, those interns are also doctors, and I'm also a doctor. But how can my status be the same as theirs? How can they treat me like this? Anyone on the team I lead in the United States will be treated as a VIP by you old people here. You'll call me an expert. Just because I'm yellow and I'm from the country, I'm the youngest genius doctor in Moreland's Medical College. But when I come back to the country, I have to be suppressed by your qualifications. I'm not convinced. I've had enough of this feeling of seniority. So that day, Tang Ying directly flipped the table during the meeting. She was in an extremely bad mood, and for the first time, she got herself drunk. She was lucky that she didn't fall into Chen Guang's hands. If someone else flipped the table in public like this, they might not be able to stay in a hospital anymore. Fortunately, she was Tang Ying. Then, Tang Ying decided to fight for something and set her sights on the good old Dr. Ma in the hospital. Dr. Ma had been working in the hospital for more than 10 years. Perhaps it was because of his limited talent that he was not good at currying favor. He was still the most ordinary attending physician, and he was still far away from becoming an associate professor. This target was neither too high nor too low, which was just right. Therefore, Tang Ying personally went to look for her mentor in the United States and used her connections in the team to get Dr. Ma to join her. She was not trying to harm Dr. Ma. Anyone in the hospital who wanted to improve their academic level would not let go of the opportunity to further their studies in Morelands. It was hard to say how much they could learn, but it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After getting such a great benefit from Tang Ying, Dr. Ma also braced himself and forcefully transferred all the patients under his name to Tang Ying under quite a lot of pressure. That was why the current scene happened. Sure enough, when she left the ward and returned to the doctor's office, Chen Guang immediately followed her. He stood in front of her and looked at her knowingly. "Hello, Dr. Tang. I want to talk to you." As expected, when she left the ward and returned to the doctor's office, Chen Guang immediately followed her. He stood in front of her and looked at her knowingly. "Hello, Dr. Tang. I want to talk to you." Sure enough, when she left the ward and returned to the doctor's office, Chen Guang immediately followed her. He stood directly in front of her and looked at her with a tacit understanding. "Hello, Dr. Tang. I want to talk to you." Tang Ying stood up. Hearing his tone, she forced a smile and said, "Well, I also want to talk to you. It's not very convenient here. Let's talk outside." He also wanted to try to change his face, but when he thought of his mother's illness, he really couldn't be happy. He couldn't care less about what other people did, but he absolutely couldn't allow this woman to tie his mother's life to her chariot and help her rise to power. The two went straight to the flower bed downstairs. Before Tang Ying said anything, Chen Guang said first, "I know you're still thinking about what happened that day, but it's over. What I want to talk about is something else. Wait, whether you accept it or not. I still want to apologize to you. Tang Ying guessed that he would have this attitude, and she also guessed what he wanted to say next, so she directly interrupted him. There's another thing. I'll apologize to you first, but I really hope that my mother can be replaced by another attending physician. Chen Guang said with a cold expression as he ignored Su Tao's apology. Tang Ying's body trembled slightly. Even though she had already guessed that he would make this request, when he really said it, Tang Ying still felt very uncomfortable. But more than that, she was angry. It's fine to be pushed aside by the senior doctors in the hospital, but now that I've finally made a name for myself, what right do you have to question my ability? Even if it's because of what happened that day. I'm naturally a head shorter than you, but my medical skills are absolutely not to be looked down upon by anyone. Anger gradually accumulated in her heart, and Tang Ying's breathing became heavy. What? Are you angry? Let me tell you, I'm even angrier. I don't care how you became that Dr. Moreland's, and I don't care how you convinced Dr. Ma to transfer my mother's patients to you. It's not important to me. I just want to change my mother's attending physician. Tang Ying was angry, but Chen Guang was even angrier than her. Tang Ying clenched her fists tightly. She wanted to punch Chen Guang in the face, but she still held back because she owed him. But she didn't want to compromise. I don't agree. I know your mother's condition very well. In the entire Wujing city, there is no doctor more suitable than me. It seems that if I don't give you face, you really won't give up, right? That's my mother's life. How dare I put my mother's life in the hands of an alcoholic woman like you? God knows if you'll get drunk one day and randomly prescribe medicine for my mother. God knows if you'll leave a pair of scissors in my mother's stomach during the operation. I don't care about anything else. That day when you mistook me for a pervert, I can also understand. Any woman would have the same thoughts as you at that time. But for today's matter, I will not take a single step back. Chun, don't go too far, even if I really feel guilty because of that. Tang Ying spoke loudly. She opened her hands and leaned her neck forward, venting her anger to her heart's content. If you really feel guilty, then do me a big favor and change my mother to Professor Liu. Just take it as I'm begging you. Do a good deed and return this little favor to me, okay? Chen Guang once again interrupted her. Chapter 152. Tang Ying was dumbfounded. She realized that there was no way she could convince this boy who was as violent as a lion, because she couldn't refute Chen Guang's words. I know I'm asking for too much. Professor Liu is a famous doctor. Our deputy mayor's illness was the same as my mother's, and he was the one who cured him. We wanted to see Professor Liu before, but he didn't accept us. Later, we met Dr. Ma. Fortunately, he was also very responsible. But this time, I really can't trust you. As he spoke, Chen Guang gnashed his teeth with tears welling up in his eyes. But he forced himself to hold on. Even if you're angry, I understand. I'm only begging you to help me with this matter. You and Professor Liu are colleagues, right? If you help me put in a good word for me, this might work out. If I can get Professor Liu's help, my mother's condition will be better. It doesn't matter if Professor Liu's fee is higher. I have money. I can make money. A lot of money. I don't lack money. Chen Guang thought of the Patek Philippe watch that was temporarily in Jiang Ye's hands, and he felt a sense of relief. Tang Ying stared at him for a long time, and her face gradually dimmed. She silently turned her head to the side. Okay, I'll help you. This little boy, he didn't even study, and now he's standing in front of me and saying he's rich. Fine, I admit defeat today. Chen Guang was overjoyed. He had been looking forward to this moment ever since he met this woman. Professor Liu was the chief expert in the nephrology department of Wujing City Hospital. His medical skills were well known, but ordinary patients couldn't come into contact with him for a long time. Asking Tang Ying for help was a desperate attempt. Of course, even if he couldn't get Professor Liu, Chen Guang would still find another doctor. But I won't completely quit your mother's treatment group. I will be Professor Liu's assistant. Tang Ying said again. By now, Chen Guang was already in ecstasy, and he didn't care so much. Thank you so much. Shall we go talk to the chief about this? Don't worry, I, Tang Ying, have always been a man of my word. This kind of thing The patient's family members can't convince the director. I'll go myself. Seeing him instantly turn from rage to wild joy, Tang Ying couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness in his heart. Who was to blame for this? Was Chen Guang wrong? He wasn't wrong. After that kind of mishap happened between them, it was reasonable for him to completely lose confidence in this overly young returning professor. Was he wrong again? Of course, even though Tang Ying wasn't arrogant, she was sure that she wasn't any worse than Professor Liu. In fact, she was even better at modern treatment concepts. Now that things have come to this, it can only be fate making a fool out of me. Who told me to get drunk just once in my life and fall into his hands? Sigh, I brought this upon myself. This time, I'm going to make a fool of myself. If someone else asked Professor Liu to take on another patient, they would most likely be rejected. However, if it was Tang Ying, he would definitely agree. This was because Professor Liu was the most authoritative person among the senior doctors who had pushed him aside. However, Professor Liu helped his patient find Professor Liu, and the patient even wanted to replace Professor Liu, but Professor Liu agreed. This was probably what Professor Liu wanted. This meant that he, the arrogant professor who had just returned from abroad, had lowered his head to him. Tang Ying let out another sigh. Was sin in life? Chen Guang was in a great mood. Seeing that Tang Ying didn't look like she was going to regret her decision, he felt like this was a blessing in disguise. If it weren't for Dr. Ma and Tang Ying, there was no way he would be able to get into Professor Liu's patients. Even if you're such an amazing returning doctor, I still only trust Professor Liu. Dr. Tang, I was a little too emotional just now. How about I treat you to supper as an apology? Chen Guang slightly turned his head and secretly wiped the tears from his eyes. He then turned his head back and smiled. Tang Ying felt like she lost him. You're a man. You change your attitude faster than flipping a book. She angrily stared at Chen Guang and said, Don't act like you're the one who took advantage of me. I'm on duty right now. I can't be bothered with you. I'm going back to my room. You can stay wherever you want. Anyways, I'll switch your mother's room with Professor Liu's special care unit tomorrow. Okay? But I have to warn you, the cost of the special care unit isn't low. If you can't handle it, you'll have to switch back to my room. It's up to you. Tang Ying resisted the urge to step on this guy. She put her hands in the pocket of her white coat and stomped upstairs at her high heels. Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he excitedly rushed upstairs. He ran faster than Tang Ying. He went back to his room and told his parents that he would be switching to Professor Liu's room tomorrow. Even though Chen Guoli and Feng Rong felt like there was something fishy going on, they were overjoyed. Professor Liu was an evergreen doctor, so they were overjoyed. The next day, when Chen Guang came back to the hospital, his mother had already been switched to his special care unit. Tang Ying and Professor Liu were in the room, asking about his mother's well-being. When Chen Guang looked at Tang Ying again, he felt like she was pleasing to the eye from every angle. What if she got drunk and vomited all over his car? What if this woman got a PhD because of her beauty? What if she forced Dr. Ma to take over his position? None of this was important. If she really got Professor Liu here, then everything would be fine. In the afternoon, the test reports came out one after another. Chen Guang ran up and down with a thick stack of test reports in his hand. He stood outside Professor Liu's office and suddenly became nervous. He came alone and didn't tell his father that he had all the reports. He pushed the door open and heard Professor Liu scolding Tang Ying. Xiao Tang, I know you young people are impulsive, but everything has to be done step by step. Although Dr. Ma has been making slow progress in the past few years, he is still one of the mainstays of our hospital. You suddenly took over all of his shifts. How is it? You're a little flustered, aren't you? Professor Liu is right. I was too impatient, Tang Ying said in a muffled voice. Young man, you're still not convinced. When I have dinner with your father, I'll ask him to reprimand you. Even though you're a rare genius, you still have to calm down. The hospital isn't like your school, and it's definitely not like your home. You can't do whatever you want. This time, you took over all of Dr. Ma's patients. A lot of people are complaining, and I'm the one who helped you out. Don't look at me lecturing you like everyone else, as if I'm purposely making things difficult for you. I'm doing this for your own good. Got it, Professor Liu. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. The patient's test reports are coming out soon. I have to wait. Tang Ying turned around, and her face immediately fell. She rolled her eyes and wrinkled her nostrils. She was full of displeasure. When she turned around, Chun Guang saw her strange expression. Chapter 153. Tang Ying was pissed when she saw Chun Guang. It's all your fault. Otherwise, why would I come here to teach him a lesson? When she walked past him, she rolled her eyes at him. Chun Guang was reading the report in his hand. He was not in the mood to argue with her, because there were too many plus signs in this thick pile of reports. Although there were still some reports that would take a few more days to come out, based on what they had so far, they could already see some signs. The situation is not good. Professor Lu's office was not as crowded as an ordinary doctor's office. There were only him and an assistant. After all, Professor Lu was usually only responsible for a few patients. Chun Guang looked at Professor Lu quietly. Professor Lu was carefully reading the test report line by line. Chun Guang tried to see the change in his expression, but failed. This old man had been immersed in medicine for many years. He did not show his emotions in front of patients or their families. After Professor Lu finished reading, he looked up and asked, "Young man, which family member of the patient are you?" Chun Guang quickly answered, "I'm Feng Rong's son. My name is Chun Guang." "Oh, hello, Chun Guang. Here's the thing. I've read these reports, but there are still a few that haven't come out yet. I'll read them later. Let's do the analysis first," Professor Lu said calmly. Chun Guang could not help but ask, "Professor Lu, has my mother's condition worsened?" Professor Lu paused for a second and seemed to hesitate. He looked at Chun Guang's worried eyes and said, "Young man, I'll give you a heads up, but don't let the patient know. If possible, arrange a kidney transplant as soon as possible." Chun Guang felt his body go soft. How? How could this be? Puss Corporation's special medicine has never stopped. So many people say that the medicine is very effective. Why can't it work on my mother? Professor Lu's face was still calm. He smiled and patted Chun Guang's arm as he said, "Everyone's physique is different. Even the best medicine doesn't have a fixed effect. Young man, don't get too excited. Although the situation isn't ideal, it's not that bad either. It never hurts to prepare early." Professor Lu, even though that's the case, the transplant matching information has already been submitted. If I could, I would have done a long time ago. It's my own transplant match that failed. Otherwise, I would have donated my kidney. Although Professor Lu said it calmly, Chun Guang was not at ease. Professor Lu rubbed his forehead and patted Chun Guang's shoulder. He said, "If I knew you were this impatient, I wouldn't have told you this. I'm asking you to prepare early because I hope that once a suitable kidney source is found, your family will be able to afford the corresponding expenses immediately. Don't let any accidents happen because of the cost. Don't let you worry for nothing, understand?" Chun Guang walked out of Professor Lu's office in a daze. He thought about it carefully and realized that he didn't say anything. He was just scaring himself. As for the financial problem that Professor Lu mentioned, Chun Guang had the Patek Philippe in his heart, so he wasn't too worried. After walking a few steps, he happened to see Tang Ying walking out of his mother's ward. She was holding the lab report in her hand. Chun Guang was a little tempted. He wanted to go find Tang Ying, but he felt awkward. After Tang Ying went back to her office, he made up his mind. No matter how good her medical skills were, no matter how much he offended her, he had to put everything aside in front of his mother's condition. Chun Guang mustered up his courage and stood in front of Tang Ying. Tang Ying looked at this young man's awkward expression and remembered how domineering he was last night. She felt proud of herself. No matter how talented she was still young. "What? You don't trust my medical skills? Why did you put the report in front of me again?" Seeing that there was no one else in the office, Tang Ying whispered to Chun Guang in a voice that only Chun Guang could hear. Chun Guang's hand shrank back, and he almost wanted to take the report and leave. However, Tang Ying snatched it from him and said, all right, let's forget about the past. You saw what happened today. I embarrassed myself in front of Mr. Lu for helping you. But I'm your mother's deputy chief physician. This is my job." Tang Ying looked at the report as she spoke. As she looked at it, her face became a little gloomy. Under normal circumstances, she could barely hide her emotions in front of the patient's family. However, Too many things had happened between her and Qingguang. They couldn't be considered friends, but they were too close to be enemies. Their relationship was very complicated. Is there a problem? Qingguang's heart tightened again. Tang Ying didn't answer him. Instead, she looked at the report again before she finally said, "After the dialysis, don't leave the hospital yet. I hope we can find a suitable kidney as soon as possible." Qingguang's face turned pale in an instant. How could it be? Tang Ying looked around before she said again, "Don't be too nervous. The situation isn't at its worst yet. It's only because of you that I'm telling you the truth so early. Anyway, just wait patiently. Don't let it slip in front of the patient." Qingguang couldn't remember how he got back to his mother's ward, nor did he know what he talked about with his parents with a smile on his face. His memory of the previous hour seemed to have gone blank. When his father asked him about the report, he only said that it wasn't out yet. At that moment, he was sitting alone on the rooftop of the hospital building. He looked up at the sky and suddenly took out the heavenly Holy Grail from his bag. He shook it with all his might and shouted, "Liuli! Liuli! Come out right now." In fact, Qingguang should have thought of this a long time ago. Unfortunately, the time he had to communicate with Liuli was too short. After entering the world in the cup, everything seemed so rushed. This woman especially liked to talk with her fists, so it was seriously difficult to communicate. Now that things had become serious, Qingguang couldn't hold back anymore. At that moment, Liuli was watching Hikari happily. How could she be in the mood to pay attention to Qingguang? She was about to pretend that she was offline when she suddenly sensed that Qingguang's mind was in a very abnormal state. She was afraid that something would really happen if he held back, so she quickly appeared in his mind. As soon as Liuli, who was shrouded in white mist, appeared, Qingguang shouted in his mind, "Liuli, help me. Save my mom." Qingguang had never used this tone to beg anyone. She had never acted like this since she got along with Liuli. She was stunned and realized one thing. It seemed that she cared too little about this savior, so much so that she didn't notice such an important thing around him. Chapter 154. I already know about your mother's situation. You're the God Emperor. You must have a way, right? I'm sorry. I can't do it. At least I can't do anything now. Qingguang was stunned. Why? Aren't you some incredible God Emperor from the endless God realm? You can't even cure someone's illness? Then what kind of God Emperor are you? What use do I have for you and this heavenly sage grail? Liuli sighed faintly. If I wasn't trapped in the heavenly sage grail, let alone cure someone, I could even create an immortal body for your family. But I really can't do it now. The heavenly sage grail's level is too low. My divine power is too weak. Whether it's hypnotizing you or controlling Wu Tong's emotions, I've already consumed a lot of my divine power. The effects can't last long. Asking me to cure your mother sounds simple, but it's equivalent to me creating a new body. It's not something the heavenly sage grail can support. Then you mean that as long as the heavenly sage grail is upgraded, I can cure someone? Then quickly give me the world and the cup. How many levels do I have to upgrade to? Say it. No matter how dangerous it is, I'll do it. Qingguang gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and roared at the heavenly sage grail while shouting in his heart. No way, it's impossible. Creating a new body is equivalent to creating a living being. It requires at least the 5th level of the heavenly sage grail, the heavenly solar grail, to barely support it. It's much more difficult than your modern medical methods. Besides, to upgrade the heavenly sage grail, you have to complete the test step by step. How can this be? Aren't you a god? Aren't the so-called gods able to destroy the world with a breath? Qingguang, you should know, right? Creation is much more difficult than destruction. Didn't I already say, my divine power is at this level? I really can't help you. Don't say that nonsense. Let's upgrade. Quickly upgrade. Are you stupid? Didn't I just say the test of the 3,000 worlds can only be done step by step? Every time I prepare the world in the cup for you, you have to wait for the heavenly sage grail to recover its energy. It takes time. You can't rush this. I can't do anything. Pa! Qingguang threw the heavenly holy grail onto the ground. Emperor of the Azure knew that he was angry at this time. She rolled her eyes and didn't want to argue with him. but changed the topic. But I have another idea about what you're talking about. I wonder if you're interested in listening? It's much easier than treating someone with my own hands, but the effect is about the same. Holy shit, there was a way. Why didn't you say so earlier? Chen Guang pounced on the Holy Grail like a hungry tiger. He picked up the Holy Grail and kissed it, caressed it, and wiped it like it was a treasure. My little sweetheart, forgive me for my slip just now. Tell me if you have any ideas. Hurry up and say it. Chen Guang tried to please her while pretending to slap himself. Save it. I saw through your character the first time I laid eyes on you. You're an ingrate who won't release the eagle until you see the rabbit. Let me tell you, the 3,000 worlds in the heavenly Holy Grail aren't all testing worlds. There are some special existences. It's just that you didn't need it before, so I didn't say it. I originally planned to let you go through each stage step by step, but now that you've been forced into this situation, I have no choice but to take out this trump card in advance. Hurry up and say it. Don't keep me in suspense. There's a realm in the 3,000 worlds that hides the Bell of Fate. It's called the Realm of Fate. This Realm of Fate is not within the 9 heavens. It's extraordinary and powerful. If you can reach the peak of this realm and ring the Bell of Fate, you can control fate. Control fate. These 4 words kept echoing in Chen Guang's mind. Fate was so mysterious. It was hidden in the void, but it controlled the billions of lives in the world. Even if it was an ant from the moment it was born to the moment it died on the road, it was all affected by this invisible fate. Today, Chen Guang finally understood the terror of the heavenly Holy Grail. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was a divine weapon. Send me to the realm of fate. I want to ring the bell of fate and reverse my mother's destiny. Dream on. With your current level, if you dare to force your way into the realm of life, I can guarantee that before your feet even touch the ground, you'll be dead without even a speck of dust left. Chen Guang was furious. Then what's the use of telling me about the realm of fate? Can we have a pleasant conversation? Of course it's useful. You won't be able to barge into the realm of fate, but I can draw out a tiny strand of the power of fate from within. It's impossible to directly reverse a terminally ill person's destiny. If you want to reverse fate, you have to stand in front of the bell of fate and ring it with your own hands. But even this tiny strand of the power of fate can cause 2 people who were originally destined to be unrelated to each other to cross paths. Because there's an inevitability in the fate of these 2 people. The power of fate can create coincidences in the destinies of these 2 people. Chen Guang was shocked. You mean? That's right. I'll draw the power of fate and attach it to your mother. This mysterious power will cause her to cross paths with another terminally ill patient with a brain tumor. Then the kidney transplant index will be almost perfect, because these 2 people really exist in this world. My power of fate is nothing more than making the terminally ill patient with a brain tumor want to donate her organs. In her life, she can choose to donate or not. It's all up to her. Won't this bring your mother back from the dead? Lioli's words were like 10,000 thunders, ringing in Chen Guang's mind. He was like a drowning man struggling for his life when he suddenly grabbed a swimming ring. Chen Guang was ecstatic. Let's do it. Let's do it. Hee. Do you really think it's that simple? Let's not talk about the divine power I'll use to draw the power of fate. Do you really think that there's no price for manipulating other people's fates? No matter what the price is, I can accept it. The ignorant are truly fearless. Cut the crap. I'll do it even if the sky falls. Otherwise, I'll bang my head against the wall and let you find another savior. Since you've made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. But I still have to let you know in advance that there will be karma when you touch the bell of fate. Your next world in the cup will no longer be a simple test world. It will be a world of punishment derived from the world of fate. It'll be a narrow escape. I'll do it, even if it's a narrow escape. Chen Guang was sure that he had Lioli in his heart. What am I afraid of? She's just trying to scare me. Since she's willing to say it, no matter how scary it is, I definitely won't die. The savior can only be me. Chapter 155. Sigh was also a pity. If such a domineering and dazzling power of destiny could only be used once, it would be too disappointing. So, Chen Guang asked again, right after using the power of destiny this time, can I still use it later? Of course, he would have to use it repeatedly. Go ahead and build as much as you can. This time, I've drawn out a little bit of the power of destiny. Its realm of punishment will only be based on the strength of the power of destiny I use. Do it again? That will be a punishment that's 10 times stronger than the normal standard. I'm not joking with you. At that level, I really won't be able to protect you. All right. It seems like your family skills are all one-time use. Anyway, thank you very much. Just do your best to break through the barriers. When the level of the heavenly Holy Grail is raised, everything will be fine. To be honest, up until now, the old man has never tasted defeat in the realm of the cup. Isn't this slow leveling up your fault? Yes, it's all my fault. While they were joking, Azure suddenly changed the topic. She suddenly roared in Chen Guang's mind. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and prepare to enter my realm of the cup. Just as Chen Guang was about to ask her what she wanted to do, he felt a terrifying suction force suddenly emerge from the heavenly Holy Grail in his hand, tearing his mind apart. Different from the past, the suction force this time seemed to contain a majestic aura. After touching it, Chen Guang felt as though he was standing under Mount Everest, like an ant facing the towering mountain peak. How domineering, how majestic. Even if it was just a fleeting touch, it still made Chen Guang feel as though he was worshipping the other party. If it wasn't for the familiar aura that surged out from the heavenly Holy Grail at the crucial moment to protect Chen Guang's mind, he would probably be prostrating on the ground at this moment. Was this the aura of the realm of fate? In the unseen world, Chen Guang's hollow eyes looked forward. It was as if he had passed through endless time and space. In an unimaginably distant place, he saw a huge bell that could support the heavens and the earth. It floated in the air, connected to the top of the clouds in the sky, and suppressed the rivers, mountains, and seas below. It rotated slowly, but when it rotated, it seemed to affect the circulation of the sun, moon, and stars in the sky, and a feeling of great power arose spontaneously. A towering, majestic, and domineering aura was constantly spreading out from the giant bell. Heaven and earth, this world existed because of the existence of this bell, and it revolved because of the rotation of this bell. On the surface of the giant bronze bell, there were countless mysterious runes. Light flowed on every rune and spread out in all directions, illuminating every corner of this world. There seemed to be countless cities in the mountains and rivers below, as well as countless strange beasts and birds. Above the city, existences that looked like gods and humans were flying on swords or riding on clouds. The giant beast walked on the plains, stepping on broken streams, breathing out clouds. Birds flew above the clouds, their wings spanning tens of thousands of feet, and they soared for 90,000 miles. The terrifying realm of fate. The terrifying bell of fate. What kind of existence is this? How will I be able to reach the pinnacle of this incomparably vast realm of fate? How will I be able to stand proudly in front of this bell of fate? How will I be able to wield such a terrifying power in order to ring this bell of fate that surpasses the entire world? With these thoughts in mind, Chen Guang was pulled into the realm of fate. Liuli, what the hell is going on? Chen Guang kept shouting, but he didn't stop in the sea of clouds. Instead, he was pulled by Liuli, who stretched out her snow-white arm and flew forward, breaking through the space and being pushed forward. You ask me what the hell is going on? I can't directly enter the realm of fate. You are the master of the Supreme Grail, and I have to use you as a catalyst to open the passage to the realm of fate. Brat, prepare yourself. I'll let you see the true power of this bell of fate. Let's see if you dare to think about it a second time. Before Liuli's voice faded, Chen Guang felt the back of his head being grabbed by someone and pushed forward. His face hit the end of the space-time tunnel. At the peak of the clouds in the realm of fate, an extremely small face suddenly appeared. It was Chen Guang's face. Chun Guang opened his eyes wide and stared fiercely at the Bell of Fate in front of him, which was extremely far away, but because it was so huge, it seemed to be within reach. At this moment, the originally calm realm of fate seemed to shake violently. Although there were no changes on the Bell of Fate, Chun Guang suddenly had a feeling that he had been discovered. The billions of creatures in the city below and the trillions of birds and beasts outside the city suddenly stopped what they were doing and turned their heads in the direction of Chun Guang. Countless gazes converged together, and under the control of the Bell of Fate, they turned into a colossus that traversed the heavens and the earth. With an astonishing momentum, it swept through the realm of fate. The sky and earth changed color, and thousands of thunderbolts exploded, as if to vent the hostility of the Bell of Fate towards the intruder. Chun Guang only had one feeling: I am being targeted by fate. At this moment, he felt his back being pulled by someone, and he flew backward. His face was out of the range of the realm of fate. The Bell of Fate. I am the Emperor of the Azure of the endless divine realm, the supreme deity of Liuli divine kingdom, the descendant of the master god of chaos. Heed my command. Lend me a wisp of the power of fate. As he floated past Liuli, Chun Guang saw Liuli, who was naked but surrounded by thousands of rays of light, fiercely stab her left hand into the hole that she had just made in her face. When she shouted the divine emperor's decree, she seemed to have temporarily revealed the true form of the divine emperor. Under the pressure of the Bell of Fate and the true form of the divine emperor, even with the protection of the aura of the heavenly Holy Grail, Chun Guang's vision darkened, and he completely lost consciousness. Before he lost consciousness, there was a vague consciousness in his mind. This is too terrifying, really too terrifying. When he faintly woke up, he was still standing on the rooftop, holding the heavenly Holy Grail wrapped in a double-layered cup cover, and looking up at the bright moon and stars in the sky. It seemed that only a short moment had passed, but in the bottom of his heart, there was an inexplicable sense of silence. Slowly lowering his head, looking at the unremarkable cup in his hand, Chun Guang felt as if he had been in another world. It was just a glimpse, but it was as if he had seen a whole world that was completely beyond his imagination. But this was only one of the 3,000 worlds in the heavenly Holy Grail. If it weren't for the fact that this cup was in my hand, and that there was a vague feeling of blood connection with me, I really wouldn't dare to believe that I was the owner of this cup. How inconceivable. The Emperor of the Azure disappeared again. As for what she did afterward, Chun Guang wasn't clear. He only vaguely felt that the bilyuakun in the cup tasted a little sweeter than usual. Oh, I seem to have accidentally seen something I shouldn't have. Liuli's small buttocks are white, and the shape is also very beautiful. Her waist is also very slender. Alas, it's a pity that I couldn't turn around in time to see her face. It's a great regret in my life. Little brat, I advise you to forget what you saw just now if you don't want to die. You tired me out, and not only do you not know how to thank me, you actually took advantage of me in your heart. Damn it. Liuli's slightly tired voice suddenly came from the bottom of his heart. Chun Guang's whole body quivered, and his heart, that had just been hanging in suspense, suddenly calmed down. It's fine as long as she's fine. Like I said, it's just a mere Bell of Fate. How could the Emperor of the Azure be so easily killed? She is the divine emperor. In short, thank you, Liuli. It's really good to have you. Chapter 156. When he returned to the ward, he told his parents about Professor Lu's judgment and told them to wait patiently for the dialysis. When Chun Guang went out, his father came out as well. Xiao Guang, is the situation really that optimistic? Chun Guoli knew his son best. When he saw the joy on Chun Guang's face, there was no way he could contain himself. After a brief pondering, Chun Guang felt that he couldn't reveal this matter to his father, so he replied, "It's neither good nor bad. But I have no idea what's going on, but I feel that something good is about to happen. Perhaps the wish I made to the heavens last night is about to come true." Chun Guoli was stunned. He knew that his son didn't believe in ghosts and gods. He patted Chun Guang's shoulder and said, It's been hard on you. I hope your good mood will bring you good luck." When it was evening, Chen Guang was carrying bags of food upstairs when he saw Tang Ying rushing out of the office. "Chen Guang!" Tang Ying shouted as soon as she saw him. Tang Ying's face was filled with joy. It was a smile that came from the bottom of her heart. Chen Guang could vaguely guess why she was happy. He thought to himself, putting aside all of her shortcomings, she's actually a good person. Well, isn't that obvious? As long as she's a normal person, putting aside all her shortcomings, she's a good person. Dr. Tang, what's the matter?" Chen Guang stood still and quietly waited for Tang Ying to tell him the result he was expecting. Even though he was mentally prepared, he still couldn't feel at ease until the dust settled. It wasn't that he didn't trust Lu Li, it was just that this matter was too important. "I just received news that a brain tumor patient from Southeast Province is willing to donate her organ. I've already asked the matching center to send your mother's lymphocytes and other materials overnight. We'll have the final result in a few days." Actually, Tang Ying was quite conservative. When she first saw the information, she almost thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. If she didn't know that Feng Rong didn't have any sisters, she would have thought that the person in front of her was Feng Rong's twin sister. She stared at the patient for a long time. Even though she had yet to perform the lymphocyte toxicity test, the human leukocyte antigen A system test, and the group reactive antibody test, with her knowledge, she was 100% certain that there was a terminally ill patient who could save Feng Rong's life in the Southeast Province thousands of miles away. One life, one death. One happy, one sad. The life of the brain tumor patient was about to come to an end. It was indeed a pity, but the choice she had just made could bring hope to another person. Chen Guang laughed. He laughed ruthlessly. He had imagined the power of Lu Li's power of destiny and thought that he might have to wait for a few days, but he really didn't expect that the good news would come so quickly. In one day, he went from great sorrow to great joy. His mind went up and down several times, drifting erratically. It wasn't until this moment that he finally calmed down. "I don't know what to say, but I really thank you." Tang Ying smugly punched his chest heavily. "Consider it as repaying what you owe me. I'm going to do my ward rounds. Remember, don't tell the patient for the time being. Just let your father know. The patient's mood needs to be stable. It's not good to be happy or sad. Oh, by the way, is there any problem with the kidney transplant? The hospital's expenses aren't big, but the donor side, there must be some. Money is not a problem. No problem at all. I understand this. It's what I should do." Chen Guang nodded heavily. Tang Ying suddenly reached out her sleeve and wiped his face. All right. I'm leaving. Kid, don't you realize that tears are coming out of your eyes?" After Tang Ying walked away, Chen Guang touched his face. Really, it was a bit embarrassing, but everything was fine. With Professor Liu and a highly compatible kidney, Chen Guang clenched his fists. "It's a done deal. As long as the surgery is successful, my mother can live a normal life." Chen Guoli found a chance to tell his father about it, and Chen Guoli was also in ecstasy. The problem of the kidney was solved, but another matter suddenly appeared in front of the father and son. Although donating a kidney was a good deed, this kind of great kindness couldn't be simply thanked. Including the other treatment and recovery costs, it would be impossible to support it without at least 500,000 yuan. Previously, Chen Guang had already transferred 220,000 yuan to Chen Guoli. 20,000 yuan was used to pay for the special medicine, so there was still 200,000 yuan left in his bank account. This bank account wasn't under Chen Guoli's name. Instead, it was under Chen Guang's uncle's name. The Chen family was still in the bankruptcy liquidation period, and they were still in debt. Chen Guoli's bank account was like a bottomless pit. No matter how much money went in, it would be frozen until the debt was paid off. Just do as I said before. Sell the house under your uncle's name. Now, the housing prices in our hometown have risen quite a bit. It can probably be sold for more than 4,000 yuan per square meter. That's 300,000 yuan in total. If it's still not enough, I'll scrape together some money and borrow some more. Leaning on the edge of the rooftop, Chen Guoli fiercely took a drag of his cigarette and said. Chen Guang shook his head and said, "That house can't be sold. Don't worry about money. I have a plan." "What plan do you have? You're just a little kid. I haven't even asked you how you got the money from last time. What did you do?" Why do I feel like 180,000 yuan fell from the sky? I almost fainted at that time. Chen Guoli finally remembered. Chen Guang thought about it. Since he couldn't hide it any longer, he told him the truth, starting from when he saved people in the lake, to his cameo appearance in Big Beer Dang's movie, and his bet with Zhouya. Apart from the Holy Grail and Azure Glaze, he recounted everything else in great detail. He felt that this long series of stories was reasonable and convincing. Unexpectedly, Chen Guoli widened his eyes and looked him up and down for a long time. If I remember correctly, you've been a non-swimmer since you were young, right? This joke of yours isn't funny at all. In his heart, Chen Guang thought, humph, you still don't know that your son has already turned into a beggar. With a mysterious smile on his face, Chen Guang picked up the cup and drank a mouthful of water. Don't tell me you're being kept by a rich woman? Chen Guang's saliva sprayed all over Chen Guoli's body. He couldn't believe that a father would say something like that to his son. When he thought about it again and realized that this was Chen Guang's father, he immediately understood. You asked me, so I told you. Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. What can I do? Chen Guang said through gritted teeth as he wiped his mouth. Chen Guoli didn't continue to harp on this matter. Let's just say that what you said is true. God knows how lucky you are, but there's still a gap of 300,000 yuan. You can't go and make another cameo, right? Who would be so stupid as to make a bet with you? Don't worry about that. Anyway, the house can't be sold. There's still a house. At least we still have a home. I don't want you and Mom to be old and still have to rent a house and run around. Money, I'll go find it. It's a deal. I've listened to you since we were young. This time, you listen to me. Chen Guang was, of course, confident. After all, he had Patek Philippe in his hands. Chapter 157. In the end, Chen Guoli still failed to beat Chen Guang. Chen Guang won the first great victory against Laozi. The father and son adjusted their mood for a long time before they dared to go back to the ward. Although it was a happy event, it was not the time to tell Feng Rong. Feng Rong's sharp eyes vaguely saw something, but she knew that the two of them would not say it even if she asked, so she did not ask. She just wanted to make things difficult for them. After 9 o'clock, Chen Guang was driven out of the ward by Chen Guoli. He had to go to school on Monday tomorrow. Chen Guoli said that he would take care of him here, so there was no need to worry. He asked Chen Guang not to abandon his studies. Sitting in the car, Chen Guang held the phone in his hand and hesitated a little. The number displayed on the phone was Jean Shiyue's number. He had never taken the initiative to ask for Patek Philippe before. To put it bluntly, it was because of his face. But at this time, he had to put his face aside. He knew that the watch was with Jiang Yage, but he was really afraid of the woman who said, I like you and my light, to flirt with him. There was a beeping sound from the phone. Chen Guang did not know what the person on the other side of the phone was doing. He could not help but feel uneasy. It was already night. Would they sleep? Hello? Hello, is this Chen Guang? The phone was suddenly connected, and Jean Shiyue's gentle voice came from it. It sounded soft and seemed to be a little sleepy. Suddenly, there was another scream from the side. Is it Brother Chen Guang's phone call? Let me do it. There was another click sound from the phone, and the person on the phone was replaced by Jiang Yage. Chen Guang had a headache. If it was Jean Shiyue, he could try to ask for Patek Philippe in a calmer tone, but he really did not know how to open his mouth when it came to this woman, Jiang Yage. Unexpectedly, Jiang Yage took the initiative to say, Brother Chen Guang, do you want to ask about that watch? How could you be so direct? What do you expect the old man to hide his modesty? All right, yes. I wanted to ask when you guys are free. I'll come over to look for you. He couldn't be courteous with them anymore. If he continued to be courteous, something bad would really happen. But Sister Shiyue and I are overseas. We finished shooting the scenes in the Wujing Film and Television City a long time ago. We just went abroad to record songs 2 days ago. Chen Guang's heart sank. When are you coming back? Jiang Yage looked at the time and felt that it was a little difficult to calculate in her head. Jean Shiyue, who was next to her, took the phone back. Yage, let me do it. Look at how hard it is for you to calculate. Brother Chen Guang, we will be back in no more than a month. After all, it is a new album, and it will take a little longer. But after we return to China, We will not arrange other work for the time being. We will come to Wujing to find you first, okay? Jean Shirue had said it like this. The big star was busy every day, but she came to find him as soon as she returned to China. What else could Qingguang say? However, it seemed that it would take a month for the preparation of the kidney transplant to be carried out before the operation could be carried out. For the time being, he would just leave it at that. At the critical moment, there was no time. At that time, he would simply throw away his face and call these two people to exchange the Patek Philippe for cash to save his life. Of course, Chen Guang knew that it was shameless to do this, but so what? Was there anything more important than his mother's life? After chatting with the two people for a while, Chen Guang hung up the phone. He heard that it seemed to be early in the morning, so he didn't want to disturb them. He started the car fiercely and counted the time. There were still 3 hours until 12 o'clock. He might as well run for another 2 hours to earn as much as he could. Do you think that Brother Guang is sick? Bai Nyangzi looked at the back of Chen Guang from behind and ridiculed him. The next morning, Chen Guang got up early, which was rare. No longer skipping classes, he went to the teaching building with the other 3 people. At this time, the 4 of them were walking together on the way to school. Lin Jingwei nodded silently. I think so too. He is very sick. Xiong'er counted his fingers. Once, twice, 3 times, 99 times. This guy can't walk properly for 99 consecutive steps. That's right. Yesterday, there was some progress on the kidney source, and the required expenses were basically settled. Today, Chen Guang was in a good mood. He felt lighter than usual. As he walked, he felt like he was about to fly. Of course, it was not because he had practiced some peerless martial arts. Yesterday's happy event had been brewing for a whole night. After a refreshing sleep, he completely got rid of the heavy pressure that had accumulated in his heart the day before, and it burst out violently. People were in high spirits when they encountered happy events, so they even skipped when they walked. Chen Guang couldn't help but sing, Xiao Ma, Xiao Erlang, carrying that backpack to school. F*CK. Hurry up and hide. Run away quickly. Lin Jingwei and the other 2 were shocked. They quickly pulled each other and retreated, trying to stay as far away from Chen Guang as possible. It was too embarrassing to let others know that the 4 of them were in a group. Gokyo University had a very long bridge between the dormitory area and the teaching building. It spanned across the Yuanming Lake, connecting the students' heaven and hell. People in Jianghu called it the Long Bridge, and the students called it the Bridge of Helplessness. It was a natural moat between the students' first class and sleeping in. Those who were interested in learning something during their 4 years in university hated the Long Bridge to the core because it was too F*King long. At this time, on the Long Bridge, everyone was looking at the guy who sang the Little Erlang. How much stimulation did he have to go through to sing in public with that broken voice of his? Chen Guang was in a good mood, so he didn't care what others thought of him. He jumped up high again and landed hard on the ground. I'm so proud, so proud. Ouch. He finally received his retribution. He stepped on a huge piece of banana peel. He didn't know which wicked person threw it at him. The reason why it was called huge was because the banana peel was too big. Whoever threw it was destined to be lonely and have no friends for the rest of his life. Then, Chen Guang slipped after being hit by the banana peel, and his whole body flew to the side. Like a non-professional high jumper, he flew face down over the railing of the Long Bridge and plunged into the Yuanming Lake below. Finally, he hit the water with a splash. From the beginning to the end, the plot had developed too quickly, so he didn't even have time to scream. Oh my God, he's going down. Bai Nyangzi was the first to scream and jump to the side. Xiong'er, the silly guy, laughed so hard that he couldn't stand up straight. Extreme joy turns to sorrow. This was his comeuppance. Lin Jingwei looked at the railing of the Long Bridge and remembered what Chen Guang had said to him many years ago. The railing of this Long Bridge is only half a person's height. Someone will fall down accidentally, right? Because of Chen Guang's words, Lin Jingwei had been deliberately walking in the middle of the Long Bridge for the past few years, and from time to time, he hoped that someone would really fall down. After waiting for 3 years, this day had finally come. Chen Guang's words came true, and he cursed himself down. As for Chen Guang's safety, no one was worried. After all, everyone knew how powerful he was in the pool. Yuanming Lake was nothing to him. At this moment, Chen Guang had already jumped out of the water. He was holding onto his phone as he howled in pain. Mother asterisk cur. Damn it, my popcorn 4S. What a scam. There was no need to tell others about his miserable state, but those who heard it would be sad, and those who saw it would cry. Worse things were happening on the other side. The number you have dialed is unavailable. Please try again later. Zhongbai hung up the phone and looked at the group of expectant people behind him. He wondered, strange, why can't I get through to Racer God? Chapter 158. He excitedly carried his bag and sang to class, but he slipped back to the dormitory wet. The Popcorn 4S was already a thing of the past, and the brand-new textbook was finally soaked with old tear stains. Chen Guang also gave in to himself. When he thought of the moment he fell into the water, he felt a faint sadness in his heart. Popcorn 4S was already a thing of the past. Granny is an errand girl. This time, she is famous again. Naturally, he skipped the morning class with a good reason. First, he turned on the computer and went to the Jingxi website to buy a new phone. Yo, Popcorn 6P? As a loyal fan of Popcorn, of course, there were only 3 words. Bye, bye, bye. After buying the phone, Chen Guang used about 20 minutes to muster up his courage and open the school forum. As expected, his feet was already flooding the screen. Famous Joker sings Little Erlang. Falls Bridge crying popcorn. A human tragedy caused by banana peel. Strongly appeal to everyone not to litter everywhere. I know the one who fell into the water. His name is Chen Guang. F***CK. I can tolerate anything else, but why did you directly expose my real name in this post? What kind of hatred? He clicked on it and saw that the ID of the poster was Swimming Master. F***CK. Anyone with a normal brain would know who this guy was. Who else could it be other than Dong Tao from the architecture department next door? Not only did this scumbag expose his real name, but he also clearly stated his age, school, and department. That wasn't the end of it. He even grabbed onto Chen Guang's beloved popcorn phone and mocked it for being a loser's phone, saying that it was a model phone for losers and that it had no class. Wasn't it just a broken phone? Was there a need to care so much? Many people replied that the swimming master's mouth was too poisonous, that the popcorn phone was friendly and easy to use, and that the love maniacs felt superior and so on. But there were still some people who thought the same as Dong Tao and looked down on his phone. That was not all. It seemed that someone had switched to a Smurf account and started to dig up Chen Guang's dark history without saying a word. He had been defeated 5 times in a row, got into fights, skipped classes for food, and so on. In short, it was as dark as it could be. It was purely portraying Chen Guang as someone who committed all sorts of crimes. Needless to say, this must be that scum Dong Tao's Smurf account. Chen Guang was infuriated when he saw this. He had taught Pan Jiang a lesson. Did he think that he would be safe in the academy's student group? Dong Tao, did he come out to look for trouble? Didn't I squash you like an ant during the sports day? But when I decided not to withdraw from the competition and handed over the championship to you, you still jumped up and bit me like a mad dog. Do you really think that I, Chen Guang, am a pushover that you can pinch at will? Do you really think I don't dare to teach you a lesson? Immediately, Chen Guang packed up and was about to head downstairs to beat someone up. When he knocked on the door of Dong Tao's dormitory, it was empty. It seemed that this brat was outside, using his phone to surf the internet. You're really dedicated. You're so energetic in typing and hating me on your phone. Don't you feel tired? Going downstairs, he looked left and right. The way the people around him looked at him didn't seem right. Of course, this was just a psychological effect. The school forum only had so much influence. Perhaps less than 1 in 10 people really liked to browse the forum. But since his mind was preoccupied, he subconsciously felt that there was something wrong with the way other people looked at him. It seemed that he couldn't stay in school today. Chen Guang slipped away and went to the internet cafe, planning to take advantage of this opportunity to practice hard in preparation for taking revenge on Jiang Luhua in the future. At the same time, he could avoid the school's limelight. In the end, he encountered another strange thing in the internet cafe. That ID called Jiang Luhua actually appeared again. Damn, he's like a shadow, haunting me like a vengeful spirit. Although Chen Guang's level was extremely high, he had been stuck at 3,000 points in the past. After his rise, he had been playing duo with 1-1, so now he was still at 3,000 points. Meeting Jiang Luxiao again in this section was a great surprise to him. Why did it feel like the other party had a special ability? No matter which section he played, this guy would appear in. Are you trying to fight me? Another owner of a cheat. Come, fight to my heart's content. Fight. After fighting to my heart's content, I kneeled in a mess. I threw the mouse away. I can't play this broken game anymore. I've lost. I'll leave the Dota 2 domain to you, the owner of the second Goldfinger. How could Qin Guang know that Emperor of the Azure was stomping her feet in anger in the World in Cup? She had been watching the manga just now when Qin Guang had fallen into the water. She had only watched half of it and had been enjoying herself when she had disconnected. The most hateful thing was that she couldn't connect again. So when Qin Guang entered the internet cafe again, it was purely suicidal. He had been targeted by Liuli's Jiang Luhua to vent his anger. After Qin Guang's continuous practice while he slept, Liuli's level had improved by leaps and bounds. She had been strong to begin with, but now she was so strong that it was completely unreasonable. When gods played games, mortals suffered. In the short period of time that Qin Guang hadn't paid attention to the gaming circle, the ID Liuli had already made a name for herself on the internet. She was even more dazzling and domineering than when Qin Guang himself had appeared out of nowhere. She could already be called an invincible master. Meet God, kill God. Meet Buddha, destroy Buddha. Hey, don't go. Liuli had a good time, but Qin Guang didn't hesitate to get up and leave. Today wasn't a good day, so he might as well go back to his dorm and sleep. Some words really couldn't be kept in his heart, because once he broke through that gate in his heart, bad luck would follow him like gangrene, and he couldn't get rid of it even if he wanted to. It even made Qin Guang start to suspect whether Liuli had used the power of fate yesterday and, apart from saving his mother's life, brought him small misfortunes one after another. He hadn't even reached the school gate, and he had already run into a ghost. When Qin Guang walked, he was a little too close to the side. An Audi A4L first came out of the school gate, then made a right turn. Then, it suddenly ran to his right and slammed on the brakes. That wasn't all. It seemed to have rain last night, and it just so happened that there was a small puddle of water at the side of the A4L. The gray bastard ran over fiercely, and the puddle of water immediately splashed up. No matter how agile Qin Guang was, he couldn't withstand this sudden sneak attack, and half of his body was soaked in the muddy water. Old Master Guang wasn't a good-tempered person to begin with, so he was immediately enraged. That A4L was in no hurry to leave after doing something bad, and it stopped by the side of the road just like that. Qin Guang frowned. Could it be that this bastard was planning to get out of the car and apologize? One shouldn't hit a smiling person, so there was no way he could happily slap him. Forget it. If he's sincere, I'll be magnanimous and let him off. Just as he was thinking this, the A4L's door suddenly opened, and a rather tall figure walked out, looking at him with a fake smile. Yo, isn't this the diving champion, popcorn bro, Qin Guang? Are you faded with water today? I accidentally splashed it all over you, so I'm really sorry. Here's 100 yuan. Take it as compensation for the clothes you're wearing, all right? The moment this person got out of the car, he put on an extremely repulsive expression and laughed weirdly, pointing at Qin Guang. Dong Tao. Chapter 159. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance. Qin Guang's face suddenly fell. If it was someone else, it might have been an accident. But since it was Dong Tao who was driving, and combined with the fact that Dong Tao deliberately drove to the side of the road when he approached him, it was obvious that Dong Tao did it on purpose. Fine, I wanted to beat you up before, but I couldn't find you. Now that you have come knocking on my door, I will let you have your way. Recently, Dong Tao had been in a bad mood. The reason was that he had been defeated by Qin Guang in the sports meet. Although Chen Guang had inexplicably withdrawn from the competition, and he had the last laugh, the shadow of his defeat in the preliminary round still lingered. Dong Tao also knew that Coach Qin had failed to invite Chen Guang. Although Coach Qin had never mentioned it again, Dong Tao still had a knot in his heart, and it was hard for him to get over it. After that, he tried to ask Pan Jiang for money. Even if it didn't work out, he felt that he had made a contribution, so he should get some benefits. In the end, Pan Jiang had completely disappeared from the face of the earth. Dong Tao couldn't get through to him on the phone. He secretly asked Pan Jiang's former best friends, and they found out that Pan Jiang had actually dropped out of school. Dong Tao was puzzled, but what made him even more depressed was that he had made a wasted effort and lost face. After all that effort, he only got a meal, and he didn't get any money. His heart was even more uneasy. This bad mood lasted until this morning. Coincidentally, he browsed the school forum on his phone and saw that a post related to Chen Guang had become a hot topic. Without any hesitation, Dong Tao immediately went into action and used his real self sock puppet. He was so happy that he had taken his revenge. As for Chen Guang's revenge, Dong Tao didn't care. Time had passed, and he seemed to have forgotten how the three of them had cowered in front of Chen Guang. At that time, Chen Guang didn't really fight with him. Dong Tao thought that he was a semi-professional athlete, and if he really fought with him, he wouldn't lose too much to Chen Guang. It was the same now. Just as he drove out of the school gate, he glanced at Chen Guang casually, and then he remembered that there were several other cars following him, so he did this without hesitation. This was not the end. Anyway, he had more than 10 people on his side. If he didn't take this opportunity to teach Chen Guang a lesson, wouldn't it be a waste of his good luck? Furthermore, they were outside the school, so even if he beat up Chen Guang, he could only suffer in silence as long as he didn't injure him too much. Dong Tao was pitiful. He had forgotten to ask Pan Jiang's classmates about why Pan Jiang would drop out of school and what happened between Pan Jiang and Chen Guang. If he knew that Chen Guang first beat up Pan Jiang's buddies and then sent Pan Jiang to the hospital, he might not be so stupid and impulsive today. Interesting. I was looking for you. Chen Guang rubbed his hands and walked towards Dong Tao. Dong Tao was slightly surprised. Is this guy really so hot-tempered? He just started a fight because of a disagreement? Doesn't he recognize what car I'm driving? An Audi A for that costs more than 200,000. What the hell is in your head? This is the car that a university student drives. Is it someone you can mess with? What the hell are you doing? Dong Tao took 2 steps back and signaled the people in the car with his eyes. All of you get out. Get out. This guy's looking for a beating. Chen Guang was only 2 to 3 meters away from Dong Tao, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. You think you have more people? Fine. Come on. I will wait for you all to come down. I will beat you all together. A few days ago, he observed and learned from Wenwen's domineering moves. Chen Guang did not want to admit that his hands were itching. He did not know how Wenwen trained, but as long as he practiced, he would have a chance to get close to the Tyrannosaurus King. At this time, 3 more cars drove out from the school gate. They went straight to where Chen Guang and Dong Tao were. They stopped, and another 8 or 9 people got out. Counting with his eyes, Chen Guang saw 4 vehicles and 13 people. One auspicious number. 2 of them looked familiar. They seemed to be the people who lost to him in the school's swimming pool. No wonder you are so brave. It seems like you have a lot of helpers. Chen Guang was not anxious at all. That day, at the same place, Wu Tong had died unexpectedly. He had single-handedly stopped Brother Scar and Glasses Wu's group. Although the number of people was similar to today, Brother Scar and the others were just small characters in Wenxing Town, but their skills were indeed strong. Dong Tao's group looked young and strong, but if they were to really fight, they would be nothing more than a silver spear tip, good to look at but useless to the eyes. Now that his own people were here, the fear in Dong Tao's heart had already disappeared. He coldly looked at Chen Guang and continued, "Having more people is also a skill. I know that you have a few brothers that hang out with you, and if you're not convinced, you can call them over and have a good fight. If you are afraid, then leave with your tail between your legs. In the future, show me some respect." Chen Guang grinned. "No problem, but you have to be good. I think I alone am good enough. As for respect, okay, I will respect you right now." Before he finished his sentence, he suddenly moved. He took 2 to 3 steps in front of Dong Tao and pretended to kick him. Dong Tao turned his body to dodge, but Chen Guang did not kick him. Instead, he stomped on the ground, leaned forward, and swung his left hand horizontally towards Dong Tao's face. Dong Tao's head followed the direction of Chen Guang's left hand and swung to the side. His head hit the doorframe of his Audi A4L. Everything happened too quickly, and no one expected that Chen Guang would actually dare to make a move. But you're alone. We have more than 10 people here. Dong Tao was stunned. The others were scared out of their wits. Before Dong Tao could scream, Chen Guang took another step forward and grabbed his collar. His right hand reached out and grabbed his hair from behind. Then he slammed him into the car window. The sound was so loud that the people who were watching from the side felt their teeth ache. It was too tragic. Dong Tao finally covered his head and squatted down while wailing. The very sturdy car window cracked from the impact of his head's impact. Chen Guang followed up with a kick that landed on that brat's stomach. Ow! The wail turned into a sharp wail. Who dares to come up? All of this took a long time to describe, but happened in a flash. In a few seconds, the tall and strong Dong Tao became a pile of mud on the ground. The 10 helpers beside him didn't even have time to react. After beating him up, Chen Guang suddenly turned around and glared at the others who tried to get close. The aura of the second officer, who had killed countless people in the sea of moments, exploded in an instant. The veins on his arms and neck bulged. The muscles that were originally hidden under the stimulation of his adrenaline unconsciously swelled up. At this moment, he looked like a ferocious beast. The young lads who were still in the ivory tower were scared out of their wits. Unhurriedly, Chen Guang took another step forth and stepped on Dong Tao's hand. He didn't exert any force, but he didn't allow Dong Tao to get up. He coldly looked around and continued, "All of you should know how this matter started, since you're in Dong Tao's vehicle. I want to talk to you about right or wrong. I just want to ask who doesn't accept it. Come, if he wants it, I'll give it to him. If you don't accept it, come up and try." Chapter 160. F***CK. Do you really think I got to where I am today by acting cute? As Chen Guang spoke, he subconsciously touched his pocket, intending to take out his weapon. F***CK, I forgot. My poor swing rod is already sunk into the fish pond. But it didn't matter. Anyway, these grandsons were all subdued. It seemed like there was no need to take out his weapon. Help me. Help me. Beat him up. Dong Tao howled in pain as he tried to pull his hand out from under Chen Guang's foot. But after trying for a long time, he was afraid that Chen Guang would really use his strength and he would still be stepped on. He shouted in panic. He was really afraid that his hand would be trampled. If that happened, his swimming career would really come to an end. What he couldn't understand the most was that there were so many people surrounding him. Why was he beaten to the ground by Chen Guang the moment he saw him, and the others didn't move at all? Dong Tao shouted for a long time, but still no one moved. The air seemed to have frozen. Dong Tao's companions were in a rather awkward situation. They didn't know whether to move or not. There were more and more people watching from the side, which made these people even more ashamed and angry. We have more than 10 people here, and we're scared to the point that we can't move. What is this? Finally, gradually, some people couldn't hold back anymore, and they slowly approached Chen Guang. Chen Guang suddenly laughed. If the matter really passed like this, it would really be a little disappointing. If he didn't fight to his heart's content, he probably wouldn't let Dong Tao completely give up. If he defeated more than 10 people in front of him, Dong Tao would probably not be able to stand still when he saw him in the future. Moreover, he had already made such a big scene. If he didn't fight to his heart's content, what would be the point? Last time, Zhong Bai and his group of young fellows were very disappointing. They had planned to beat him up, but suddenly, he turned into a potential financial backer of their family. They treasured him so much that they were afraid of losing him in their hands and melting in their mouths. Dong Tao and his group didn't have that kind of treatment. It was a good time to have fun. Of course, I wasn't so domineering in the past. Who asked me to be different now? I'm the second officer of the Inn Royal. Just as the first person was about to approach Chen Guang, and he was about to take the initiative to attack. A sudden change occurred. From the corner of the street came the rumbling sound of an engine. The voice came from afar and approached abruptly. It was like a tidal wave, one wave after another. The rolling sound pressure was deafening, and many people covered their ears in discomfort. A supercar, and it wasn't just one. From the sound of it, there were at least 10 of them. The roar of the supercar's engine was too deafening. Not to mention the bored onlookers surrounding Chen Guang. Even Chen Guang himself and Dong Tao's companions couldn't help but look towards the end of the street. Sure enough, as the first yellow Ferrari FF turned the corner, a series of supercars followed closely behind it. The dull and ear-piercing roar of the engine rose and fell. Although these supercars didn't speed up, the people in the cars seemed to be enjoying the dull and thunderous roar. 1, 2, 3, more and more. The long line of supercars became longer and longer. Finally, when the last Mercedes-Benz SLS turned the corner, there was a Geely Vajra in an awkward situation behind it. The sharp-eyed people had already counted how many supercars there were. There were a total of 22 supercars. Thick, incomplete smoke gushed out from the rear of these cars and rose into the sky. Coupled with the thunderous roar of the engine, it gave people a strong sense of oppression even before they got close. What a shameless show-off. Ganging up to show off, it's an unfair advantage. Suddenly, such a voice came from the crowd. The person who spoke was Chen Guang. Dong Tao's companions were the closest to him. They turned their heads and looked at him in disdain. These people thought to themselves, "You country bumpkin, what do you know?" The value of the 22 supercars added up to hundreds of millions, especially the Porsche 918 Spider inside. The price of the single car was as high as 15 million. As for the expenses of maintaining this car, it was simply asking for one's life. Poor Dong Tao, he was actually forgotten. One must know that his hand was still being stepped on by Chen Guang. Oh, Chen Guang himself had also forgotten about this. At this moment, Chen Guang's mind was thinking, when I become rich one day, I'll sell one too. That's right, the Porsche in the middle. Although I don't know much about this kind of high-end stuff, I can tell that the car is worth a lot of money. It's not that I'm not bragging, but it's way cooler than the Nissan GT-R in front and behind it. All right, actually I'm just guessing. All the supercars in my eyes are actually the same. 3 words, I can't afford it. At this moment, the Ferrari FF that was leading the pack gradually approached them before it abruptly swung its head and crossed the road, stopping near Chen Guang's group. At this moment, Chen Guang's group had the most people gathered around him, and it was the most conspicuous. The people in the car were most likely here to ask about something. The car window rolled down, and a head popped out and asked loudly, "Bro, is this Gokyo University? Do you know Chen Guang from the University of Construction and Sanhuan Science?" We can't get through to his phone. Puffed. Chen Guang was stunned. Who else could it be other than Zhong Bai? I must have mastered some special abilities recently. Whoever I think of, that person will immediately appear in front of me. I heard that there's an investment guru called Buffett on the other side of the sea. When can I have lunch with him? Well, I've already thought of that. I'll be able to see Buffett tonight at the latest. Before Chen Guang could speak, Zhong Bai had already spotted Chen Guang from the crowd. He was overjoyed. He quickly stopped the car, opened the door, and got out of the car. Then he pulled out the walkie-talkie from the car and shouted, "Everyone pull over. I found Brother Racer. We're so lucky." After that, Zhong Bai threw the walkie-talkie in the car, slammed the door, and eagerly walked to Chen Guang. "You've crossed the double solid line and made a U-turn. You'll be fined 300 yuan and deducted 1 point." Seeing Zhong Bai getting closer and closer, Chen Guang suddenly said this. Zhong Bai stopped. After being scolded by Chen Guang, he scratched his head in embarrassment and turned his head away, not daring to look at Chen Guang. Sorry. I'm used to it. Change. I'll change." Dong Tao, who was on the ground, and his companions, who were standing, were all dumbfounded. "What's going on? Brother Racer?" That country bumpkin, Chen Guang, was the racing god that person was talking about. This group of supercars formed a group to act cool, and come to find him, that person who just got out of the car seemed to be very respectful to Qin Guang. Things seemed to be getting a little out of control. The onlookers were also at a loss. Previously, they thought that Qin Guang was in big trouble for taking the initiative to make a move against more than 10 people. How did he get a helper in the blink of an eye? Moreover, the helper's momentum was so cool. 22 cars. There were at least 22 people. Moreover, those who could afford to drive these cars naturally had a rich family background. It seemed like the offensive and defensive situation had suddenly reversed. Who was that Qin Guang? Just now, that person called him Brother Racer. What did that mean? Countless question marks rose in everyone's heart. The only one who was really clear was Qin Guang. Chapter 161. When Dong Tao's helpers saw this scene, they didn't dare to make a move on Qin Guang. They quietly retreated, intending to disassociate themselves from this matter. Zhongbai had already noticed that Qin Guang's situation was a little strange, but he didn't point it out before he got close. He stood next to Qin Guang and waited for the people in the other 21 cars behind him to rush out of their cars and approach one after another. Only then did he approach Qin Guang to talk. Qin Guang's eyes were very sharp. He had been secretly paying attention to the super valuable Porsche 918. The one who got out of the driver's seat was actually Lu Fei, the female pirate, the rich woman that I've been dreaming of. If I can get this girl, selling a wheel will be enough for me to eat for half a year. Brother Racing God, what are you talking about? I didn't hear it clearly. Zhong Bai's voice came from the side. Qin Guang rolled his eyes and accidentally said what he was thinking in his heart. Fortunately, it was noisy nearby and I didn't hear it clearly. Otherwise, my image as the racing god of this generation would be ruined before I even made a move. It's nothing. We'll talk about your matters later. I'll take care of this small matter first. After that, Qin Guang turned his head to look at Dong Tao, but he smiled without saying a word. He was secretly happy. Although Zhong Bai's entrance shocked the old man, the effect was really good. At least Dong Tao, this idiot, was completely scared. He must have begun to doubt his own life, right? On this side, Zhong Bai took a step forward and pulled Qin Guang's foot away from Dong Tao's hand. We are all here. Do you still need Brother Racing God to make a move? What are you doing? Dong Tao had already begun to slip into his car. The situation was not good. It was better to leave first. Zhong Bai grabbed the back of Dong Tao's shirt and threw him back. Dong Tao immediately fell on his back. Normally, Dong Tao was taller and stronger than Zhong Bai, so he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. However, he had just been beaten up by Qin Guang, and now he was stunned by this group of idiotic, rich second generations. If one spirit was gone, it would be useless to have a strong body. All right, Zhong Bai, that's it. Qin Guang was a little worried that this group of people would do something that crossed the line. After all, he only planned to beat Dong Tao up once. God knows what kind of crazy devil was hidden in the bones of these rich second generations who were as docile as lambs in front of him. However, Zhong Bai did not agree. Brother Racing God, you beat this person up so badly. Your relationship must be bad. We don't have any greeting gifts for you, so it's only natural that we help you teach someone a lesson. Is this lousy Audi's car? Zhong Bai pointed at Dong Tao's car and asked. Qin Guang ridiculed in his heart. You're talking about other people's lousy Audi, as if your heavenly states are 8 isn't an Audi. It's his why. Zhong Bai grinned and raised his head at the few brothers who were walking over from behind. Smash this Audi A4. What the heck? Qin Guang was stunned. What do you mean by being rich and willful? Compared to you guys, I'm practically a living miser when I put 2 cup covers on the heavenly Holy Grail. Under Dong Tao's dumbfounded gaze, under Zhong Bai and the rest's laughter, and under Qin Guang's pained gaze, this brand new A4L that Dong Tao regarded as his treasure was smashed all over the place. It couldn't be said to be completely scrapped, but looking at the completely deformed body, even using one's toes to count, one would know that if they wanted to completely repair it, it wouldn't be too far off from buying a new one. Looking at this pile of scrap metal, Dong Tao didn't even have the strength to cry. He sat on the ground like a madman, his hands trembling. He wanted to point at these rich second generations and shout something, but he didn't dare to. He was also unwilling. This matter can't be resolved, Chun Guang muttered in his heart. He secretly planned to run away as soon as possible. This has nothing to do with me. I don't have the money to pay for it. At this time, Zhongbai took out a business card from his pocket and threw it at Dong Tao's face. We don't have any cash on us, but we're very busy today and don't have time to transfer money to you. This is my business card. If you want me to pay for it, follow the address on the business card to find me. I'll be waiting for you at any time. Zhongbai wasn't done. Lu Fei, who had been standing on the side, watching the show with her hands folded, also walked up and did the same. Some sharp-eyed people had already noticed that Lu Fei had gotten out of the Porsche 918. Needless to say, the 918's wheels could be exchanged for two Audi A4 LS. After Lu Fei threw the business card, the other 20 people did the same. The snowflake-like business cards surrounded Dong Tao in a complete circle. It looked a bit like a magic circle to summon cute pets, and Dong Tao was the poor cute pet lying in the middle of the magic circle with a sad face. Chun Guang watched curiously. This group of people seemed to be very familiar with this routine. Obviously, this wasn't the first time they had done this. Brother Racing God, actually, we're not as bad as you think. Although the car was damaged, we still have to pay for it. It's nothing more than a way to vent our anger. If we handle it this way, we'll look good and he'll feel good. Things won't get out of hand, and everyone will be happy. Of course, I reckon that he might not really dare to ask us for the money after seeing the business card. But that's his problem. We've done everything right. Sitting in the front passenger seat of Zhongbai's car, Chun Guang listened to his explanation. His heart still ached. Damn, so this is the greeting gift you were talking about? A car that smashed a basket. Why don't you just give me the money? I don't care about my reputation, but I care more about the inside. Forget it. Things have already come to this. I can't possibly let Lioli use magic to change the Audi A4L back, right? Wait, if I remember correctly, didn't my little Rena also take a trip to the gates of hell? If I really stopped the car and provoked them verbally that day, I would either have to beat them up directly, or my little Rena would have turned into 80,000 yuan sitting in my card, right? Thinking about it this way, it was really a close call. Whether he beat them up or lost the car, his racing god training class would be dead in its infancy. Are your business cards really that useful? Why don't you show me one? Tossing aside the past, Chun Guang was curious. He also wanted to know what Zhongbai's family did. Zhongbai chuckled. Business cards are also props to show off. All of us always have one on us. Only Lu Fei is more pretentious. Her business card really only has her phone number and name printed on it. As he spoke, Zhongbai held the steering wheel with one hand, took out a gold-stamped business card, and handed it to Chun Guang. Senior Director of Huangshan Corporation? Your family's company? Zhongbai nodded. Yes, your father's creativity in naming the company. I'll give him 36 likes. Zhongbai's face turned green. He had probably heard this kind of ridicule nearly 100 times in the past 2 years. He sighed. When my father started up the company, the word Xiang didn't have this layer of meaning yet. Fate makes fools of people. Chapter 162. All right, we have a tacit understanding. Go back and think of a way to persuade your father to change the company's name. All right, can't you just call me if you need me for class? Why did a bunch of people come to my school and stop at my school gate? Are you here to act cool for some fun? Chun Guang said angrily. He couldn't bring himself to be happy when he thought about how his $200,000 had flown away without him noticing. Zhongbai felt even more wronged. I've been calling you for a long time, but I couldn't get through at all. We snuck over to try our luck. Since we had nothing better to do, we bumped into you at the school gate. Isn't that good luck? Couldn't get through? Chun Guang pinched his forehead. He couldn't even complain anymore. Heavenly State's Popcorn 4S, you really died a terrible death. That wasn't the biggest blow. Chun Guang realized that he didn't have the special ability to call. Zhongbai and the rest happened to come over only because he couldn't get through to his phone. All right, where's your R8? Hasn't it been repaired? Is it a new one? Chun Guang hurriedly tried to change the topic. Otherwise, his heart would hurt again. Zhongbai sighed angrily. The whole car is flooded, so what can I do? It was sent back to Germany and won't be back for a month or two. I can only drive this one out. Don't think that it's expensive. It's not as convenient as the R8. Give it to me if it's not convenient. Chen Guang rolled his eyes and thought in his heart. He couldn't be bothered to talk to this rich second generation anymore. He didn't want to be hurt by this grandson's extravagance again. The group of people came and left in a hurry. They smashed Dong Tao's heart and A4L into pieces at the school gate. The crowd at the school gate was also shocked. Dong Tao was heartbroken as he laid on his own car. The pain all over his body, added together, was not as much as the pain of a funeral. He was so angry that he could barely breathe. Then, he pointed at his companions who had been watching the show from the beginning to the end and gnashed his teeth in hatred. He held it in for a long time and only managed to say, "Damn you. You onlookers. You're dead." From the moment he tried to attack Chen Guang by relying on his advantage in numbers, it was destined to be a huge mistake. Even if those people didn't come later, they still wouldn't be able to defeat Chen Guang, because his grandsons didn't dare to make a move. Then came these super runners, who were even more unreasonable than him and wilder than Chen Guang. Not only did they smash the car because of a disagreement, they even threw their business cards at his face. They looked like they were saying, "If you want to pay up, come and find us." Was he really going to ask for compensation? Stop joking. Look at what is written on these business cards. A senior director of Huangxiang Corporation, deputy general manager of Dongguan Group, the assistant to the chairman of Parkson Tiana Group. Take your head and ask for it. Well, losing a car worth more than 200,000 and being able to get so many high-end business cards, it seems like it's not entirely without benefits. But his family's small business couldn't compare to such a big haul. What could he do? Admit defeat. As for Chen Guang, Dong Tao was even more determined not to provoke him. He couldn't beat him. Fight with his background? Don't make trouble. All his family's wealth was not as good as the Porsche 918 in the middle of the group of cars. What would Dong Tao become? Whether the onlookers would take photos and upload them to the internet, whether he would really change from the diving brother to the car-smashing brother, Chen Guang didn't care at all. Anyway, no matter how miserable he would be the former underwear Superman. Today, he didn't go to class or the hospital. Since he had picked them up, Chen Guang was planning to take care of the racing god training class. Although there was Patek Philippe there, it was not bad to earn more than 100,000. God knew how much the whole kidney transplant surgery would cost. Now, 200,000 in cash, plus the 400,000 that Patek Philippe might get, the total was 600,000, which might not be enough. A group of cars drove to the Fengquan mountain racetrack. Zhongbai was quite honest on the way. He didn't exceed the speed limit or run the lights, which was completely different from what Chen Guang had imagined. Of course, Chen Guang speculated that it might be because he had taught him a lesson before. It was only 10 o'clock in the morning, and there was no one else here at all. After getting out of the car and counting people, Chen Guang found that most of the people who were racing here that day were not seen today. Most of them were unfamiliar faces, and only Lu Fei and 3 or 4 other people could be remembered. Zhongbai, what's going on? I don't know most of them. Chen Guang wondered. Zhongbai scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "Brother Racing God." Okay, don't call me Brother Racing God. It's so distant. Those who don't know me might think that my surname is Che and my name is Brother Shen. Just call me Chen Guang. Chen Guang interrupted Zhongbai's words. He was unconsciously trying to get close to the rich second generation. He was so confident because he had driving skills. Okay, Brother Chen Guang. Zhongbai tried to call him. After calling him, he looked nervously at Chen Guang's expression, for fear that he wouldn't be used to it. Chen Guang sighed. Hey, damn, can you not stare at me like that? I thought you had a gourd in your hand. If you call my name, I would be sucked in. After Zhongbai explained it to Chen Guang understood how attractive his skills were. Zhongbai was tight-lipped. In accordance with Chen Guang's request to pull a few more students, he secretly pulled in his buddies who had a good relationship with him to make up the number. As a result, there was a loose tongue in that group of people who leaked the matter. Now, all the second generations of Wujing City who liked to race cars flocked to this place. Zhongbai became the spokesperson of Chen Guang's racing god training class. Everyone wanted to come and fought over it. However, Zhongbai couldn't figure out Chen Guang's temper. He said it was a training class. If he really pulled in 100 people and only charged 100,000 a day, he was really afraid that Chen Guang would just fling his sleeves and leave. In desperation, Zhongbai had to pick and choose. Those who really couldn't erase their relationship and couldn't put down their pride were able to enter the ranks of the first training class. Originally, the other few people who met for the first time also barely managed to keep their spots. However, the others couldn't do anything to Zhongbai, so they went to those people separately. The form was stronger than the people. Everyone fought with each other in private and did all kind of shady business. After changing back and forth, there were now 22 people. Of course, just by looking at the batch of cars that came today, it was clear that the 22 people who had been changed were not the same as those who surrounded Zhongbai that day. Among them, the cheapest was the top Nissan GTR. Who knows how much money this guy spent on it? Of course, the female pirate Lu Fei was the most domineering. She quietly drove her Porsche 918 Spider. Chen Guang said that the scale of her family's chemical plant was a bit big. After asking Zhongbai about the matter, Chen Guang was thinking about how to get close to Lu Fei, the rich woman. As a result, she took the initiative to come over and smiled. Chen Guang, brother racing god, what did you buy this t-shirt? The half-dragon pattern is very domineering. I also want to buy one. Lowering his head, Chen Guang sighed. He had just splashed half his body with mud. And when he saw Zhongbai's party, he was so engrossed in the thought of the $100,000 training fee that he forgot to change his clothes. Right now, he was so dry that there were even marks on his clothes. Hey, you don't say. It was indeed quite domineering half-dragon pattern. Go away. You even dare to tease your mentor. Be careful. I'll let you taste the Haushika hockey that I just practiced. Chapter 163. Since he had decided to earn this money, Chen Guang was not going to fool around. He planned to teach them something real. Although they were rich, after spending so much time with them, Chen Guang could tell that they were not stupid. They were smart. Zhongbai had said that apart from the 22 people today, there were at least 180 people waiting outside. No, he had to limit the number of people. Today was the first time, but the next time, there would be no more than 20 people. That way, he would be able to fool at least 5 more groups of people and earn at least another 500,000. So the problem was, if he wanted to keep this business going, how should he teach them today? Sitting in the driver's seat of Zhongbai's Ferrari FF, Chen Guang felt a little sad when he turned his head to look at Zhongbai, who was so excited that he did not know what to do. He found a few problems, and the most pressing one was how to start the car in front of him. Looking at the strange buttons on the FF steering wheel, even if he was the king of English and knew every word, it was useless. Knowing the names of the buttons did not mean that he knew how to start the car. Brother Chen Guang, what's wrong? Zhongbai excitedly waited for a long time, but there was no movement, so he couldn't help but ask. Letting out a sigh, Chen Guang couldn't act anymore. Although his driving skills are heaven-defying, he's only driving low-end cars like the Altarina. He hasn't even touched a high-end Ferrari before. Zhongbai, can you tell me how to start the car first? Chen Guang finally admitted. Zhongbai was stunned at first, but then he came back to his senses and tried not to laugh out loud. He had never doubted Chen Guang's driving skills, but he did not expect this godlike person to have such an awkward moment. It would be difficult for someone who did not know how to drive a car like this, but after Zhongbai briefly explained a few key points, Chen Guang immediately got the hang of it. But a new problem arose. What should he teach him? If his driving skills were really discovered little by little, perhaps he could really explain the main points to Zhongbai in simple terms. But in fact, he was the victim of the stuffing method of teaching in a cup. From the beginning to the end, I drove the modified Alto and sped through the 9 stages of the God of Racing Cup, finally becoming the God of Racing. Now that I'm teaching someone, I can't bring them into the cup realm, and I don't have any theoretical knowledge. The ability to race is done subconsciously, and I don't need to think about it at all. You want to teach others? How am I supposed to teach them? Pay attention. When he took off, he had to look in the rearview mirror to make sure there were no other cars behind him. Oh, by the way, first check that the safety belt is not fastened tightly. Then release the handbrake and place your feet on the clutch and brake respectively. Thankfully, the Ferrari FF still had clutch. Hey, Jean-Bai, what happened to you? What kind of expression is that? Are you doubting my teaching? Brother Guang, what you just said is only taught by a driving instructor. We want to learn how to race with you, not from the most basic level. Jean-Bai wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He even began to wonder if the god of racing was unhappy that he had invited too many people. Seeing that he couldn't fool him, Guang also had a headache. He slapped his hands on the steering wheel and held it in for a long time before he said, Zhongbai, it's not that I don't want to teach you, but my driving skills are unorthodox, and I don't know how to teach you. Huh? Zhongbai was puzzled. Guang thought for a while and lied through his teeth. You might not believe it, but I was just an average driver in the past, and my driving skills might not even be half as good as yours. But one night, I suddenly had a dream. Do you know what I dreamed of? Zhongbai's curiosity was suddenly piqued. What? I dreamed of it. I dreamed that I was driving an Alto for 500 kilometers per hour, and then I sped all the way over mountains, across rivers, across oceans, and even finished the Dakar rally. When I woke up from my dream, I was driving at my current level. Do you believe it? My driving skills were actually trained in that dream. In the Alto, Guang said with a sincere face. Zhongbai's mouth was wide open, and he looked at Guang in a daze. He subconsciously thought that the god of racing might be joking, but looking at his serious expression, it didn't seem like he was joking. Lu Fei and the others, who had been hiding outside the car window and peeking inside, were shocked by Zhongbai's expression. Lu Fei was speechless. What did Guang say? Zhongbai's face was full of shock. No wonder he's the god of racing. With just a few words, he scared Zhongbai, this brat. The others nodded. Amazing. Really amazing. No wonder he's the god of racing. This group of people was also pitiful. If they knew the real reason why Zhongbai's mouth was wide open, they would probably vomit 3 liters of blood. Zhongbai, who was inside, was dumbfounded for a long time. He didn't expect the god of racing's real situation to be like this. He looked at the people who were still waiting in line outside to listen to his teachings, and for a moment, he didn't know what to do. On the other side, Guang finally had a flash of inspiration, and he thought of an idea that could deal with it. He suddenly clapped his hands and said, I got it. Zhongbai was startled again. What is it? Guang laughed. I thought about it. Although I don't know how to teach you, the old man's driving skills are not to be underestimated. Besides, you just signed up for my training class. There are so many people here today, and it's not worthwhile for me to teach them one by one. I don't have that ability, and you won't be able to learn it, and the time doesn't allow for it. So, let's do it this way. I'll drive here, and you figure out how to observe my driving methods and movements. How much you can learn and comprehend is your ability. If you can't learn or comprehend it, don't blame me, and I won't be responsible. My driving skills are natural, and words can't describe them. They can only be understood but not explained. After that, without waiting for Zhongbai to say anything, Guang suddenly started the car and rushed forward. He thought of something again and continued. This Fengquan Mountain racetrack is 20 kilometers long. If everyone raced back and forth, we would have to run 880 kilometers today. There's not enough time. You make the arrangements. After the 2 of us set off, ask 11 people to follow us in their own cars. I'll send you to the finish line, and then change people to run back from the finish line. Everyone only runs one way, not back and forth. Do you have any objections? Guang's thoughts lit up, especially when he used righteous words to bluff. All of a sudden, Guang felt more confident. He even brought out the racing god's aura, which instantly changed the way he spoke. Zhongbai nodded fiercely like a child being taught a lesson. He only sighed in his heart. This is the real racing god. Domineering. Mighty. If I say so, I won't discuss it with you at all. If you recognize it, then admit it. If you don't, then admit it. He will definitely leave and won't waste his breath on ordinary people like you. Chapter 164. At first, Guang was not very familiar with the performance and control of Zhongbai's car, so he held back when he ran. Zhongbai still felt that it was a little boring. But as time went by, when Guang gradually figured out the performance of the Ferrari FF, the situation gradually changed. After 5 kilometers, Guang's speed became faster and faster, and he didn't like to slow down when he was passing corners. Zhongbai saw it clearly. His heel was clearly on the brake, and the rear of the car was also emitting billowing smoke and dust from the friction of the tires on the side of the road, and the car was also drifting sideways. But Zhongbai couldn't understand why he had to slow down when they were both drifting, but the racing god didn't slow down at all. Yes, his right foot is still on the accelerator, but when I drift, my right foot is also on the accelerator. What's the difference? The key was that he could always control the limit of flying and let the Ferrari charge through all kinds of U-shaped corners, S-shaped corners, or Z-shaped corners. Zhongbai didn't dare to relax for even a second. His eyes drifted to the road in front of him, and then he observed the dazzling operation of Guang's hands, shifting gears, handbrake, and turning the steering wheel. Too fast. Too fast. I can't see it clearly at all. Zhongbai originally planned to not let go of Guang's leg movements, but later, no matter how his eyes drifted, he found that he could only look here and forget there. This was not only his biggest pain. He was also wearing a seatbelt, and he was also an expert in Wujing City's racing scene. Sitting in his own car, he almost fainted from being thrown around. Compared to Guang, Zhongbai felt that his years of racing were all wasted. He was driving an old car. From the beginning to the end, Zhongbai, who claimed to have a good foundation, felt like he was reading a book from heaven. When he finally came back to his senses, the Ferrari FF had already screeched to a stop on the finish line. He unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car. Guang stretched his body and sighed. Not bad. It's much better than my crappy Rena. Have you checked your watch? With Guang's reminder, Zhongbai, who was still in a trance, suddenly reacted. He pressed the stopwatch and then stared blankly at Guang. 8 minutes, 43 seconds, and 7 seconds. Then, he took out his phone and did some calculations. He gasped. The average speed is 137.48. Guang grinned. How does this compare to your usual results? In fact, Guang himself was not very satisfied. After all, he could reach a few hundred kilometers per hour in a small broken Alto. Today, he had switched to a Ferrari FF, a super sports car, but he could only reach a speed of 130 kilometers per hour. His performance was terrible, and he did not know if the group of rich second-generation heirs would be satisfied. Zhongbai was completely dumbfounded. Brother Racing God. He was so scared that he called him Brother Racing God again. Usually, when we run by ourselves, we can reach an average speed of more than 90 kilometers per hour, and that's already putting our lives on the line. You're so fast that it's completely unreasonable. Although this Phoenix Spring Mountain is not as thrilling as the Akina Mountain racetrack in the anime, it's not far from it. You're even crazier than Takumi Fujiwara. You're a living legend. Zhongbai felt a little dizzy. Then, he remembered that in the first half of the journey, this man was still trying to figure out the performance of his car and drove with a suppressed temper. Only in the last 3/4 of the journey did he really speed up. Zhongbai felt even more terrified. This was only his second time driving this racetrack. This result was far from his limit. When I checked my watch just now, he had already gotten out of the car and stretched. He had wasted at least 10 to 20 seconds. I didn't even realize that the speed was so amazing when I was in the car. Only after I got out of the car did I realize how amazing it was. No wonder he couldn't catch up with his broken Rena that day. He didn't check his watch that day. Now that I think about it, he basically didn't slow down when he was driving the Rena, and he ran at an average speed of more than 100 kilometers per hour. It would be a miracle if he could catch up. Seeing that he managed to intimidate the other party, Guang was satisfied. Naturally, he didn't have to be as excited as a modified Alto. In any case, he just had to deal with it, and it was fine as long as he could deal with it. Did you learn anything? Guang looked at him expectantly. Zhongbai blushed and subconsciously wanted to nod, but then he turned his face away awkwardly. Basically, I didn't learn anything. Your movements were too fast. I couldn't remember them at all. I couldn't even see them clearly. Chen Guang shrugged. You can't blame me for that, right? Anyway, I was out of form. Zhongbai looked up at the sky and sighed. It wasn't that he didn't work hard when he was young, but that his mentor was too violent. After waiting for about 7 to 8 minutes, the other 11 cars caught up one after another. When this group of people arrived, they were all shocked by Zhongbai's absent-minded look. After hearing Zhongbai talk about how Chen Guang had run for 8 minutes and 43 seconds, all of them looked at Chen Guang with a completely different expression. Those who had witnessed Chen Guang racing with Rina were still fine, since they were at least mentally prepared. However, those who hadn't been here last time felt that Chen Guang wasn't looking at a person, but a god. Chen Guang moved his body slightly, looked at the time, and smiled. Well, I'm in a good state. Hurry up. Who's next? Run 2 more times before noon, and finish early in the afternoon. 8 minutes later, another guy broke down. This guy's level was much lower than Zhongbai's, and he didn't even see Chen Guang's movements clearly. Moreover, Chen Guang first used Zhongbai's Ferrari FF to get used to the performance of a supercar. Now that he switched to this Mercedes-Benz SLS, it didn't seem to be much different. He was very fast from the beginning and maintained his speed until the end. However, this group of people wasn't completely devoid of experts. Chen Guang vaguely remembered that about 10 people, there was a guy driving a Nissan GTR. Although this guy's car looked the lowest on the surface, he was the most diligent. The performance of the GTR was not bad to begin with, and he had magically modified it even more. The actual value of this supercar should be at least 5 million, and it even had its own nitrogen injection to accelerate. However, when Chen Guang had magically modified the Alto, he didn't try this thing. After all, this car was very valuable, and he was afraid that something would happen to it, so he suppressed his curiosity and didn't touch it. When he was actually driving, Chen Guang felt that the car was indeed very good. He easily finished the race within 8 minutes, which was the best result of the day. This guy's eyes were fixed on Chen Guang from the beginning to the end. He was smarter than Zhongbai and knew that he wouldn't learn anything if he looked at the road and the people at the same time. So, he simply paid attention to the small details of Chen Guang's operation. When he sent this guy to the finish line, Chen Guang looked at the guy's sparkling eyes and knew that this guy was really going to be enlightened. Chapter 165. Why? How much have you learned? I feel a little bit, but I'm afraid I have to practice more later. Maybe I can reach half of your level. This young man was modest. Well, there's so many people today, I'm afraid you didn't learn for nothing. Chen Guang laughed and got on the next car. With such a young man as his backing, at least his tuition today was not in vain. Again, the master's show, you guys just watch the fun. Whether you can learn it or not, I don't care. Lu Fei and her Porsche 918 Spider seemed to have been pushed to the last by her own request. She was smart enough to wait for Chen Guang to finish her last lap. He had to go back to school, right? At that time, she would let him drive her car back to school. Compared to other people's mere 20 kilometers of tutorials, it was worth the ticket price. As for Chen Guang's 100,000 yuan in cash, he had already transferred it to his PayPal account during lunch. This money was easy and pleasant to earn. It was nothing more than changing different cars and strolling repeatedly on the Phoenix Spring Mountain Racetrack. The workload was similar to that of opening the internet, but the income was like heaven and earth. It cannot be mentioned in the same breath. The driving skills that Chen Guang showed today were already divine in the eyes of Zhongbai and the others, but compared to Chen Guang's realm in the Cup world when he had 100 resurrection chances, it was still worlds apart. This made Chen Guang sigh. In this world, no matter what you do, you have to be professional. As long as you show the top professional standards, even if you just casually drive a car, you can earn 100,000 yuan a day. Is this the divine pencil sharpening skill? Sigh, forget about that damn divine skill. It doesn't even feel good to show off. Sitting in the driver's seat of Lu Fei's Porsche 918 Spider, Chen Guang tried hard to restrain his emotions, striving to make himself look like a real god of racing. He must not let others see his slightly embarrassing situation at this time. When he was in the other Lamborghini, he had asked the young man how much Ruffy's car was worth. When he finally found out the truth, he almost burst into tears. The entire car was imported. Even if a button on the control panel was broken, the original parts had to be handmade by foreign craftsmen. There were only 918 cars in the world, and the entire car was worth $15 million. There was no way to be friends with this woman. Damn, my heart is so tired. It's so tiring to be friends with a real nouveau riche. Lu Fei didn't know that Qin Guang was feeling sad. She rolled down the window and said to Zhong Bai and the others with a smile, "You guys go back to your own homes first and understand yourselves. The rest of Brother Racing God's time belongs to me. Brother Qin Guang has accompanied us for the whole day. It's time to go back to school." Cunning, despicable, shameless. I mean, Sister Lu Fei, why are you so benevolent and righteous to take the initiative to be the last one? Lu Fei was extremely proud of herself. She pointed her head and said, "As a person, you have to use your brain more. That's why I could buy a 918, but you guys can only drive your lousy Gallardo. All right, that's it. Go and stay where it's cool." The dejected Qin Guang listened to Lu Fei's words and suddenly said, "If you want to take care of me, this will count as overtime. You'll have to pay more." Lu Fei laughed and patted Qin Guang's shoulder again and again. "Brother Qin Guang, you're so humorous. You really know how to joke. Do you think I don't understand the meaning of overtime? Those little bastards dare to say anything in front of me. All right, let's hurry up and go. I can't wait anymore. Damn it, I'm not joking. You should be more serious." Qin Guang complained in his heart, but Lu Fei had already fastened her seatbelt. She then rubbed her hands and stared at him with a face full of expectation, waiting for him to start. "This unlucky girl, why can't you understand human language? Why is your comprehension ability so low? You can't expect a man like me to really open my mouth and ask you for extra money, right? You should have some eyesight, right? Brother Qin Guang, are your eyes uncomfortable? Why do you keep blinking? I have some eye drops here. F***CK your eye drops. I'm not happy." Brother Qin Guang, didn't Zhong Bai and the others just say that you only took 8 minutes to finish the Fengquan mountain racetrack? Why? Why are you running at 60 kilometers per hour now? What do you know? I didn't teach them seriously. I just wanted to finish the race quickly. You're different. I'll teach you well, so drive slowly. You learn a little. This is my real ability. Lu Fei was overjoyed. All right, I'll learn seriously. Then, Qin Guang silently drove the Porsche 918 to the school gate at a speed of up to 80 kilometers per hour and 60 to 70 kilometers per hour most of the time. Until Qin Guang got out of the car and left, Lu Fei was still desperately trying to figure out Qin Guang's so-called real ability. That's strange. There's something wrong with his speed all the way here. No matter how I look at it, he feels like a new driver who just got his license. 10,000 question marks popped up in Lu Fei's mind, and she could not figure it out. Finally, she clapped her hands fiercely. Sigh. It must be because my level is too low and I can't see the true meaning behind his seemingly ordinary operation. A real racing god has to start from the most basic of basic skills. He must have hidden the unique skill that he wanted to teach me in the most ordinary driving. It's like listening to thunder in silence. Zhong Bai called to ask about the situation. "Sister Lu Fei, have you arrived yet? What did Brother Qin Guang teach you after that? Why did you arrive so late?" Lu Fei shook her head proudly. "Can you compare to me? Who am I? What Brother Qin Guang taught me is a unique skill. Real ability." "What? Real ability?" Zhong Bai's eyes widened in envy. Lu Fei was very proud of herself. Although she did not understand Qin Guang's so-called real ability, it did not stop her from feeling proud, even though she did not understand it. If she knew that Qin Guang was only playing with her Porsche 918 because he was mentally unbalanced and was shocked by her rich spirit, she would not be happy at all. Of course, Qin Guang was not spouting nonsense. This was indeed his real ability. When he returned to the dormitory, it was about 6 o'clock in the evening. Pushing open the dormitory door, Lin Jingwei and the other two were not playing games, but were gathered in front of Bai Fan's computer screen, not knowing what they were doing. Bai Nyangzi chuckled as he dragged the mouse around, while the other two were pointing at the screen nonstop. The three of them whispered to each other like thieves, their faces rippling with wretched expressions. Chen Guang cursed in his heart. It was simply shameful. In broad daylight, under the bright sky, they actually gathered to watch something not suitable for children. Unforgivable. And they did not even call me. What are the three of you doing? What are you looking at? Why do you look so excited? Whose network disk was cracked again? Did someone lose their phone or computer? He rushed forward and shouted. Unexpectedly, the three of them were more nervous than he was. They turned their heads and looked at him as if they had seen a ghost for a few seconds. Then they all shouted at the same time. F***CK. My ears. Chen Guang pushed the three to the side and moved closer to the computer. He finally saw clearly what the three of them were doing. His face suddenly turned gloomy. Zhong Bai's smashing of the car was filmed by someone and uploaded to the school's website. Chapter 166. If it was only Zhong Bai and the others who took pictures, it would be fine. However, Chen Guang couldn't get away with it from the beginning to the end. During the whole process of the bystanders taking pictures or recording, Chen Guang was almost always at the center of the camera. There was no doubt that he became a typical character. A domineering student led a group of second-generation rich kids to beat people up and smash cars in public. They were arrogant and domineering. Even if the incident happened outside the school, even if the one who was beaten up was a second-generation rich kid, the weak side would naturally get the sympathy of the bystanders because Dong Tao was really pitiful at that time. If it was just this incident alone, perhaps Chen Guang's identity wouldn't be exposed so quickly. However, the post about Chen Guang falling into the water in the morning was exposed by Dong Tao. When the posts on both sides were put together, the matter immediately became more lively. Within a day, he became a hot topic on the school forum twice in a row. This time, it was impossible for Chen Guang not to become famous. In the dormitory, the wretched look on the face of the third grandson just now was all kinds of fancy comments on the pile of hot posts on the internet. The three of them were also big-hearted. They knew that the matter wasn't that serious. Although many posters and replies were splashing dirty water on Chen Guang, this incident happened outside the school. Secondly, Chen Guang didn't really participate in the process of smashing the car from the beginning to the end, so the slander couldn't stand. As for the scene of him beating up Dong Tao, because it happened too quickly, the bystanders didn't have time to take pictures. Most of the photos and videos were taken from when Zhong Bai and the others smashed the car. After all, the latter half was the climax, and only then was it worth watching. The fight at the beginning was too sloppy and ordinary. Therefore, although this matter was very big and very lively, in fact, Chen Guang could completely ignore it. With the passage of time, this matter would slowly be forgotten. You three are really calm. It's already like this, and you still don't know how to inform me. Chen Guang was angry. Lin Jingwei calmly pointed to the corpse of Popcorn 4S that was still hanging on the windowsill. It was almost ready to be buried. What if we used telepathy to inform you? You're not even online when you're outside. Are you blaming us? If you don't believe me, you can log into QQ and take a look. I can guarantee that the messages we sent to you have already exploded. Okay, let's just leave it at that. There are so many trivial matters. Fortunately, I made a small fortune today and am in a good mood. I don't care about this trivial matter and let it pass by itself. Thinking of the 100,000 yuan in his PayPal account, Chen Guang was in a good mood again. He just had to wait for the 6p popcorn to arrive tomorrow, and then he would transfer the money to his father's card as soon as possible. In this way, there would be 300,000 yuan in the card, which was more than enough to support the surgery until the day of the transplant. As for the payment to the donor, of course, it was Patek Philippe. Suddenly, Lin Jingwei's phone rang. When he picked up the call, he snorted into the phone while looking at Chen Guang, who was about to turn on his computer and play games with a weird gaze. Chen Guang was creeped out by his gaze. He felt that something bad was about to happen. Sure enough, Lin Jingwei hung up the phone and looked at him with a sneer. "Brother Guang, go downstairs. Teacher Zhua has been looking for you all day. She's waiting for you downstairs. You should think about how to deal with her. You also know that Teacher Zhua is very concerned about the collective image of the class. I'm afraid you won't have a good time this time." Obviously, although Lin Jingwei and the others knew that nothing would really happen to Chen Guang, they all felt that Teacher Zhua would definitely give him a good scolding. After all, the student in her class had become a negative example and tarnished her reputation as the new counselor. Chen Guang sighed and drank some water. He braced himself and stood up. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Brothers, pour me a glass of wine and congratulate me on my triumphant return. With a perturbed mood, Chen Guang went downstairs. Sure enough, Zhua Jingxi was standing at the entrance of the dormitory with a gloomy face. "Teacher Zhua, it's so late. Why don't you get off work and go home to rest?" Chen Guang chuckled as he stood in front of Zhua Jingxi. Zhua Jingxi glared at him, but did not say anything to him at the entrance of the dormitory. Instead, she suddenly turned around and walked into the grove next to her. She said faintly, "Let's talk over here." Following behind Zhua Jingxi, Chen Guang looked at the beautiful counselor's swaying and graceful back view. However, he felt a chill down his spine. It was a dark and windy night. He was going to teach her a lesson. When they arrived at the grove, Chen Guang was pondering how to teach her a lesson when Zhua Jingxi suddenly turned around. Chen Guang thought that she was going to make a move. He quickly jumped back and crossed his hands in front of his chest, assuming a standard defensive posture. Unexpectedly, Zhua Jingxi only looked at him with red eyes and said in a muffled voice, "Why are you so worrisome? You were so smart before. You knew that Wang Run would want to deal with you. It's already at this juncture. Why don't you know how to restrain yourself? What if Wang Ren gets hold of your weakness?" Chen Guang was stunned. He thought that Zhua Jingxi was going to scold him, but he did not expect that she was worried that Wang Run would take the opportunity to stir up trouble. "Hey, I thought you were going to do something by being so fierce. Wang Ren, how could I not know what Fatty Wang is capable of? Don't worry, he can't do anything to me." "What are you saying? You were fighting in public and smashing cars in public. How vile is that? Why are you still so indifferent?" Zhua Jingxi was more anxious than Chen Guang himself. Chen Guang laughed. "Teacher Zhua, although you said that, I've seen the video that those people took online. Did you see me make a move? The cause and effect of the matter are not as exaggerated as those people on the internet say." Then, Chen Guang told Zhua Jingxi everything that had happened at the school gate. After Zhua Jingxi listened, she was still worried. "Strictly according to what you said, it was indeed Dong Tao who provoked first. Smashing cars was also done by those rich young masters. It has nothing to do with you. But you fought with Dong Tao before, and you made a move." Chen Guang said again, "So, if Wang Run wants to cause trouble for me, no matter what happens on the internet, he has to have evidence and a reason. As long as Dong Tao doesn't jump out to testify against me, this matter has nothing to do with me from beginning to end. As for whether Dong Tao dares to testify against me, I think there's no need to worry at all. If Teacher Zhua had seen that pile of business cards, you would definitely think the same as me." Zhua Jingxi finally let out a long sigh of relief and patted her chest. "I was worried to death. But how did you get to know those rich young masters?" Chen Guang raised his hand. "Have you forgotten? Didn't I injure my hand a few days ago because I was trying to save that kid who was the most active? With this friendship that has gone through life and death together, if something really happens, he will definitely come out and clean my ass." With this, the cause and effect of the matter were all clear, and Zhua Jingxi's heart was completely relieved. When she heard Chen Guang's last words about cleaning up his mess, she blushed slightly, but pretended not to understand. "Okay, then let's not talk about this for now. But you still have to be careful. I have a feeling that Fatty Wang has been playing tricks recently, and it's very likely that it's targeting you. Just come at me. I'll deal with whatever comes at me. I've never been afraid of him." Guang still had the same attitude. Zhuo Jingxi rolled her eyes at him. If I didn't know about your family situation, I would have thought that you have some amazing background. Haha, what kind of background can I have? I'm not afraid of crooked shadow, and that's my biggest background. Okay, there's nothing else. You can go back to the dormitory. I should go home too. Zhuo Jingxi waved her hand and was about to go back to the dormitory with Guang, but the moment she took a step forward, she suddenly screamed, "Ah!" Then, as if she had suffered a great shock, she fiercely pounced on Guang and posed like an octopus, wrapping herself around Guang's body like an old tree. Chapter 167. Inexplicably attacked, Guang really became a dead tree that couldn't move. He stood rooted to the ground with a blank look on his face. He felt that his brain wasn't working properly. They had just finished talking about business, but this beautiful counselor's style changed a little too quickly. Even if the old man had long been looking forward to it, she should at least give him some time and space to prepare. Your confession came too suddenly, too fiercely. What should I do? Guang raised his hands slightly, his palms forming claws in the air. He really didn't know what to do. Should he follow Zhuo Jingxi's movements and hug her back tightly, or should he put on a righteous look, push her away, and tell her, "Teacher, I'm not the kind of person you think I am"? Of course, the latter thought could perfectly protect his image of a gentleman, but wouldn't it be too cruel to himself? A faint fragrance seemed to flow out of Zhuo Jingxi's body as she trembled slightly. It fiercely rushed into Guang's nose, as if someone was using a green foxtail to tickle his nose. It was numb and extremely itchy. Not only that, but Zhuo Jingxi's figure was already tall and voluptuous. Her whole body pounced on him like this. The two mountains of Wangwu and Taiying weighed more than 1,000 pounds. Her huge breasts pressed hard on his chest, making it hard for him to breathe. That wasn't enough. Even more shameful was that her legs were already hanging in the air, tightly wrapped around Guang's thighs. This meant that not only was her upper body impacted, but the lower half of their bodies were also tightly pressed together. Guang's breathing gradually became heavier. The dragon was about to raise its head on the 2nd of February. Fortunately, his willpower was strong enough. He knew that he would definitely be doomed tonight. He touched his pocket and found that he still had a few $100s in cash. After he got out of here, $300 should be enough to book a room at the hotel opposite the school, right? Sigh. It's a pity that I don't have my phone anymore. Otherwise, I could use my phone app to book a room with just a twitch of my finger. I might even get a 20% discount or something. Nowadays, the economy is in a slump. Every little bit saved counts. Thinking of this, the huge dragon couldn't bear the pressure and slowly raised its head, as if it was going to roar at the sky. Snake! Snake! Guang! It's a snake! Just as Guang's mind was beginning to picture the scene of the 300 rounds of bloody battle later, Zhuo Jingxi once again yelled at the top of her lungs. This time, it wasn't a meaningless scream. Instead, she pointed at Guang's back and spoke with a trembling voice. What? Snake? Guang's face darkened. After all this time, you suddenly hugged me not because you wanted to confess. Slowly turning his head, Guang followed the direction of Zhuo Jingxi's finger. Sure enough, he saw a small spotted snake about 2 feet long coiled on the tree trunk behind him. Its neck was bent, and its head was facing the two of them. The snake hissed and flicked its tongue, looking like it was about to attack. Oomph! A mere 2 feet long snake dares to bare its fangs and brandish its claws in front of the old man. Do you think I don't know what's good for you? This thing looks scary, but it's nothing more than a non-venomous cauliflower snake. It's only 2 feet long, and it's not even an adult. If you want to fight with me, cultivate for another 1,500 years. When you reach by Sujin's level, come find me. Do you know that the old man is the dignified master of the heavenly Holy Grail, the savior of the Emperor of the Azure, and the strongest man with countless main character halos? Just as Chun Guang turned around and saw this little thing and was about to take off his shoe to scare it away, the little snake suddenly took the initiative to make the first move. It sprang forward and pounced over. Courting death, Chun Guang's eyes widened in anger, and his murderous aura rose again. His right hand stretched out like lightning, and he used the pencil-sharpening divine skill that he had painstakingly practiced but had never been able to use. Although he did not have a knife in his hand, having no knife was better than having one. He used two of his fingers as a blade, and with the steady, accurate, and ruthless aura he had when sharpening a pencil, he used the little snake's head as the tip of a pencil and sliced it horizontally. Ouch! Then he bit two of the fingers on his right hand. It hurts a little. Chun Guang immediately jumped up and broke free from Zhuo Jingxi's entanglement. His other hand quickly reached out and grabbed the snake's weak spot and shook it. After a long time, he finally managed to save his fingers. Then he grabbed the snake's tail and whipped it violently, hitting the little snake's head against the tree trunk. It was unknown whether it was dead or unconscious. Done. After he succeeded, Chun Guang clapped his hands proudly. Good. This snake's head was very small, and its teeth were even smaller. The wound on its finger was about the same size as a small hole made by a finger during a blood test. It was not considered serious. Zhuo Jingxi looked at his finger that was still bleeding, and no one knew what was going through her mind. She suddenly grabbed his finger, stuffed it into her mouth, and started sucking. Every time she sucked, she spat out a mouthful of blood on the ground. After a long time, Zhuo Jingxi's face was completely red. It was unknown whether it was from exhaustion or shyness. She stared straight at Chun Guang and said, "Are you okay? Is there any more poison?" Chun Guang rolled his eyes. "I was fine, but if you keep sucking like this for a while, I'll have to go to the hospital for a blood transfusion. I'm a little dizzy. I think I'm anemic." Teacher Zhuo, this snake is called a cauliflower snake in my hometown. It's not poisonous. Why didn't you say so earlier? I saw that you were quite into it, so I didn't have the heart to interrupt you. In the end, it was a false alarm. Zhuo Jingxi came with the intention of denouncing him, but she left with a red face. Chun Guang braced himself and came, but he left with a few small bloody holes on his finger. He did not know who won and who lost. At this time, the two of them did not know that Wang Ren was indeed looking for trouble with Chun Guang. Moreover, the evidence he had was not limited to what happened yesterday. The next day, the first class in the morning had just ended. When the whole class was preparing to return to their dorms, they saw Wang Ren and a large group of people blocking the classroom entrance. Zhuo Jingxi, who was in the crowd, desperately tried to signal Chun Guang with her eyes, but to no avail. Vice Dean Han was also in the crowd. His face was full of impatience, but he was pulled by Wang Ren and did not let him go. Chun Guang knew in his heart that this Wang Ren was really looking for trouble, but he was not in a hurry. He casually walked to the classroom entrance, pretending not to see this group of people, and was about to walk past them. Chun Guang, stop right there. Today, Wang Ren seemed to be very confident. He suddenly turned to the side and stood in front of Chun Guang. He shouted sternly, and there was a bit of an awe-inspiring aura. "What business does Director Wang have with me?" Chun Guang stood where he was and greeted him calmly. Wang Ren first turned around to take a few glances at the people behind him, who Wang Ren didn't know what their positions were in the academy. He then turned around and said, "Chun Guang, you gathered a crowd to fight, bullied a fellow student, and had a very bad influence. The school believes that you have seriously violated the school's rules." Chun Guang raised his eyebrows, and then Fatty Wang was about to speak, but Sun Xiaoxuan, who was behind Chun Guang, had already taken the lead to make a scene. This petite, seemingly weak girl from Jiangnan suddenly squeezed between Chun Guang and Wang Ren. She looked straight at Wang Ren and said loudly, "I am Sun Xiaoxuan, the class monitor of the environmental sciences course. I know Chun Guang's situation the best. Director Wang, there must be some misunderstanding. Everyone in our environmental sciences course knows that Chun Guang is upright and warm-hearted. He is definitely not someone who gathered a crowd to fight and bullied a fellow student like you said. You must have made a mistake somewhere." Chapter 168. Sun Xiaoxuan's sudden outburst was beyond everyone's expectations, not even Chen Guang. At this moment, she was like an enraged cow protecting her calf, baring her fangs, and brandishing her claws in front of Wang Ren. She glared at Wang Ren, whom many girls in the academy secretly regarded as a scourge, without the slightest bit of fear. Wang Ren was stunned for a moment, and so were the school leaders and staff he brought to support him. Before coming here, Wang Ren had repeatedly emphasized to them that Chen Guang was aggressive, hot-tempered, and disobedient. He was likely to be difficult to deal with. That was why he called so many people to create pressure on Chen Guang so that he would willingly follow everyone to the conference room. At that time, they would decide how to punish him according to his repentant attitude and situation. In the end, Chen Guang hadn't even spoken yet, but Sun Xiaoxuan, a well-known and excellent student in the academy, had jumped out. Wang Ren and everyone else looked at each other, feeling like they were in a difficult position. Xiao Zhua, control your students. Wang Ren had no choice but to vent his anger on Zhuo Jingxi. Zhuo Jingxi turned her face to the side and didn't even bother to look at Wang Ren. She couldn't wait for Sun Xiaoxuan to be more violent, so that Wang Ren wouldn't be able to do anything today. Chen Guang patted Sun Xiaoxuan's shoulder from behind. Class rep, you go to the back. We all know what kind of person Fatty Wang is. I don't want you to be targeted by him. As soon as Chen Guang said this, the environmental engineering class behind him wanted to laugh but couldn't. They wanted to laugh because Wang Ren was exposed by Chen Guang in public. They couldn't laugh because they thought of the poor girl from last year. Moreover, Sun Xiaoxuan was standing on the opposite side of Wang Ren, so everyone was subconsciously worried for Sun Xiaoxuan. Sun Xiaoxuan still wanted to say something, but Chen Guang suddenly put his mouth next to her ear and said, I'm really fine. You go to the back first. Perhaps Chen Guang's words were magical, because Sun Xiaoxuan actually retreated in a daze. Chen Guang, show some respect to the school teachers. Wang Ren was instantly enraged that Chen Guang was called Fatty Wang before so many people. Chen Guang glanced at him. The Fatty Wang I'm talking about might not be you. I can't do anything about it if you insist. Looking at you today, you won't stop until you show me some power, right? But if you want to come to me with a few empty words and treat me like a policeman arresting a criminal, I don't agree with your reasoning. So, go back to where you came from. Others might be afraid of you, but I'm not. Wang Ren's eyes widened in anger at Chen Guang's rebuke. He was so angry that he almost choked on his breath. It took him a long time to calm down. He finally thought of something and turned his gaze to the crowd behind Chen Guang. Pan Zhang's buddies, who had been hiding in the crowd and pretending to disappear, couldn't sit still, but they still didn't want to move. Wang Ren coughed fiercely again. Finally, someone stood up. It was Ren Yuan. He took a deep breath and shouted, Director Wang, even if Chen Guang really did beat Pan Zhang into the hospital and make him quit school, we are still students. The school doesn't have to punish students like this, right? It's not good to do it in public. You're talking nonsense. You clearly know that Pan Zhang wanted to. Sun Xiaoxuan was anxious, but he couldn't finish his words. He found it a little difficult to say it out loud. Ren Yuan continued to say, Class rep, we all know that you like Chen Guang, but the conflict between Chen Guang and Pan Zhang has nothing to do with you. The two of them have a deep grudge in class, and everyone knows that. Ren Yuan, you're lying through your teeth. Do you really not know why Pan Zhang was beaten? Didn't you see it with your own eyes that day? Lin Jingwei was standing next to Ren Yuan. As soon as this grandson finished speaking, Lin Jingwei grabbed his collar from the side. Xiong had already raised his fist. Okay, I was wondering why that damn Fatty Wang, Ren, came looking for trouble. So it's you bastards who became his traitors. I'll beat you up. There were still so many people watching. He couldn't let that idiot Xiong or hit him in public. Chen Guang reacted quickly. He hurriedly pounced on Xiong, Er's back, and pulled him back. What are you being impulsive for? Lin Jingwei, you let go too. With Chen Guang's roar, Lin Jingwei and Xiong immediately calmed down and stopped making a fuss. Ren Yuan, you're very good. Very good. Chen Guang stood in front of Ren Yuan and looked at him coldly. From Run Yuan's expression, there was a sense of helplessness. However, he only turned his face to the side and didn't look at Chen Guang anymore. Turning back, Chen Guang grinned and said, "Director Wang, I'll go with you." Fatty Wang's face finally revealed a cunning smile. He thought to himself that he had already prepared everything. Ren Yuan and the others had also settled everything. When they reached the academy building, the best result for Chen Guang today would be to give him a big demerit. If he was still so arrogant at that time, he might even be expelled. At this time, Vice President Han finally spoke. This old man had been watching the situation from the side with cold eyes. He came in front of Chen Guang and patted his shoulder. He said sincerely and earnestly, "Young people shouldn't be too impulsive. Don't worry, the academy will make a decision based on the actual situation. When the time comes, you just have to state the truth. I promise I won't wrong a good student." How could old man Han not understand Wang Ren's plan? However, he himself was the person with the highest position here. He also thought highly of Chen Guang. When he said this, he had already secretly made up his mind. If it really came to that, he would come forward to forcefully protect Chen Guang. At least, he absolutely couldn't let him get expelled. Wang Ren watched coldly from the side. He didn't seem to care much about old man Han's attitude. Chen Guang nodded, but his brows were still furrowed. Through Ren Yuan's actions just now, he had already roughly guessed Fatty Wang's plan. "Let's go." Chen Guang. Fatty Wang stretched out his hand to pull Chen Guang. However, Chen Guang glared at him, and he shyly withdrew his hand. "We're going to," Bai Fan shouted at the top of his lungs. "This isn't Chen Guang's personal matter. The whole class is a witness." Sun Xiaoxuan was about to say something, but Chen Guang suddenly pulled her skirt and whispered in her ear, "Class monitor, do me a favor. I'm afraid I won't have a chance to make a phone call later. My new phone hasn't come yet, and I'm too lazy to use someone else's phone to change my number. Quickly help me go to Wenxing Town Police Station and find Officer Wu Tong. Just say that the school plans to use Pan Zhang's matter to punish me. She will know what to do. She will help you?" That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.